cover up the offending parts of it.
Yeah, let's have a listen and,
Yeah.
and decide.
It's quite stark.
I mean, what's extraordinary about it is he presumably did loads of different interviews promoting the same new film, because that tends to be what happens.
Yeah.
And he just chose one moment to say this.
Yeah, as I say, it feels like this was something that he clearly has never talked about, almost as if he wanted to get it off his chest.
Yeah.
Who's going to talk about it?
So I think Lucy's around.
Talk about it.
So I think Lucy's around.
Lucy's about. Obviously, it's a part of a story, but that shouldn't necessarily.
I think it's really about him and his reputation, isn't it? Isn't that?
Yes. From my understanding of the interview, it's an extended, where he says this is an extended bit talking about like the pathology of vengeance.
Yes, revenge.
In which he talks about troubles and stuff, and in which he's being self-critical. So I can see how maybe in this interview, unlike the others, it would come through.
Can Lucy get in touch with his agent or publicist?
Yeah.
He may apologise today.
There's been no official comment on.
None at all.
We have reached out to his US agents overnight, but there's been no response yet from them.
TV-wise, Francesca, you happy with that?
Yeah, I think so. That's right.
Yeah. And well, you've already got a story out.
Yeah, we're reading it up. Obviously, we'll look to move it on as and when.
And take whatever we do with the video or the audio, really.
The audio, correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Paul, do you want to run through other home news?
So we start with Libby Squire, who is the student from Hull who's still missing. There was quite a, I suppose, a development in terms of pleas yesterday from her parents. It was a very much a controlled statement filmed by the police asking for information. Then afterwards there was a police presser. So we're back today just to see where this may take us. There was quite a lot of searching going on in water nearby and just door-to-doors, checking, drains, etc. And there was a report in some of the newspapers, or in one of the newspapers last night, about a neighbour apparently hearing a scream at the time of her disappearance. So Sally Lockwood is there and live from 8. And then we'll just see where it takes us today.
See if there are any developments.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do we know if the police are planning on doing any updates?
At the moment we don't, but we'll keep an eye on it.
Other home news?
Other things, just a note that we are, after a couple of good days in Guernsey, heading out of there this morning. So that for us is, for the moment, is we draw a line initially, but we'll keep an eye on it, of course. There's a story this morning about paedophile hunters, which overnight 5 people were arrested in Leeds by West Yorkshire police, who subsequently released all 5 on bail, but used the arrests on suspicion of falsely imprisoning people as a chance to sort of reiterate the need for people to not act as self-styled vigilantes, but actually to contact the police rather than take matters in their own hands. I know that Mark White's done quite a lot on this in the past.
Big story on it last year.
Yeah. So we can certainly talk to Mark this morning, David.
Certainly, yes. I mean, the only thing I would say is that this particular incident sounds like it's the kind of thing that does happen from time to time, all the time.
Are they saying that these arrests were made as a result of an operation by hunters? Or
It seems that there were a number of cases, and in this particular case, the accusation is that people were falsely imprisoned or wrongly imprisoned.
Yeah, we've written it up online, by the way. So.
Yeah.
Maybe worth
a little more digging.
Well, also on digital, pulling out the stuff that Mark did last year. So it was quite extraordinary. Characters that he came across.
Yeah. Did the police ever, because obviously the police kind of look both ways on this. In some cases, it's helpful to them.
Yeah.
In other, but at the same time, they have a message that you shouldn't do it. Did they ever come up with a national strategy?
Well, they act upon evidence. They actually never did come up with a national strategy, which is part part of what you're saying. They do look both ways in it. Many successful prosecutions emerge out of evidence gathered of paedophile hunters. But in this case, it sounds like they're actually accused of falsely imprisoning somebody. So that's over and above the gathering of evidence. So I don't think that we can necessarily say that the police's response to this case is any kind of change on what they would say about paedophile hunters generally.
It's just a strengthening of that reminder that people shouldn't take matters in their own hands.
Because most paedophile hunters wouldn't do that. They wouldn't sort of imprison somebody. They collect evidence and then do a sting, plaster it up on YouTube or somewhere.
I think we need to hear what Mark's got to say about it, don't we?
Okay.
Can I just go back to Guernsey? Sorry.
Yes.
It's obviously it's a story that's been resonating really well on mobile. So if we're pulling out, what's the mechanisms for updates on the...
We're in touch with all the relevant people that will effectively let us know if there's a move. I know the search vessel that has been used, and the one that was actually the one that identified where the aeroplane was, is heading back to the UK today. So we're in touch with rescuers, we're in touch with agents.
Okay.
So if there's a slight development on that in terms of wreckage, in terms of other pictures, then we'll be on top of it.
Okay. It's difficult to determine how long it's going to take to raise it, and then it doesn't. I don't think it goes to Guernsey. I think it goes to Ostend.
Okay. I'm not questioning the decision to pull out, just to make sure that we don't miss anything.
Yeah.
Subsequent.
Any other home news stuff, Paul?
Couple of things very quickly. Carers. We're not doing a lot of this at the moment, but we could do. Some stark figures have been released by Carers UK. 1 in 7 juggling the day job and caring for elderly, disabled or sick relatives. And there's a figure that says 600 people a day are leaving jobs to care for people. It's quite a lot. And they're calling for the government to introduce statutory care leave. So it certainly could be something that we could guest during the day.
Yeah, definitely.
We're writing that up for.
And a couple of notes, if I can, on court cases very briefly that we will be covering today, or certainly giving an eye across the Hatton Garden Basel trial. That Adele Robinson is at Woolwich Crown Court. The prosecution began outlining its case yesterday, so we'll be there again today. Yesterday was very much kind of a bit of a history lesson about what happened way back. Hillsborough continues. Of course, we'll keep an eye on that today. And there is a trial out in the west of England that Dan Whitehead is across as well. Concerning accusations around drug smuggling.
Okay, thank you, Paul.
On Hatton Garden, is Adele, can you ask her to file a copy for us?
Yeah. Do you want that as a rolling copy, or do you
No, I
want to
think
live blog
maybe
it?
later, at the end of the day.
End of day.
Yeah.
Yep.
Andy, foreign-wise, there's quite a bit going on, although a bit later on, really, on the whole.
A lot of it is geared towards a little bit later, yeah. Venezuela, there's still sort of quite a lot of moving parts to it, not just to the story, but to our deployment as well over the next couple of days. The Lima Group meeting in Canada yesterday echoed sort of calls from the EU for the military to recognise Guaido as the interim president. I'm hoping that we'll get some picture maybe of this sort of aid contingent being prepped today, which is due to arrive tomorrow. Dominic will be in late morning and can pick that up with studio chat. Stuart will be out and about, gathering what he can, working towards a VT, probably for 10. So it's certainly in terms of daytime coverage. It's Dominic who will be reliant on.
It's worth talking to him, I think.
Yeah.
Maduro's done a couple of interviews the last couple of days. And there was something out of Ottawa yesterday, wasn't there?
There was, yeah. That's the Lima Group.
Yeah, exactly.
With this, which is the grouping of South American countries.
Yeah,
Okay.
the pressure's building on him, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's gonna
It's not going away. It's sort of like ebbs and flows a little bit, but it's not going away as a story, certainly.
Yeah.
You know, and then it'll pick up again with this aid deployment, which we think will arrive tomorrow. Yeah.
All right.
Can I just mention the Crawford piece, which I know ran yesterday, but just so people are aware, in terms of the duration, there are 3 versions. So there's a shorter version running in Sunrise at just under 3 minutes, but there is also a 4.5 minute, which has got it goes into a lot more depth and context with the interviewees. So if that can if there's space for it, that'd be great to get that out.
Very powerful piece.
Post Sunrise. Yeah. I mean, again, it's fascinating talking, hearing from what to you and me are sort of everyday people who you'd meet in the street here. Later on, Cordelia is interviewing Raj Shah, who was Deputy Press Secretary from the White House. Is going to talk about the the relationship the White House has with the media, which hopefully will be a slab for 5 o'clock.
Yeah, I've been in contact with Emily Purser. They're going to aim it for 5:30 for us.
Yeah, 5:30. Yeah, and then also in the States we've got the State of the Union, which happens overnight our time tonight. If there are lines to talk about, then we've only got Cordy in DC, but Hannah should be available in New York. So we'll just need to sort of flip-flop as to who talks at what time, if you like.
We've got some guests lined up for the 6 on that as well, but I'll just need to check studios
Great.
with you. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah.
Okay.
And that's where. And I just wanted to mention the John Oliver interview as well, which Hannah did last night, and there's some quite good stuff about the rigours of news gathering, and there are some of the more entertaining excerpts which probably need a little bit of editing.
Last time she interviewed did fantastic business on YouTube, and that was one of our most watched.
Was it?
On YouTube, we are talking about head,
Yeah.
so we'll cut it long again.
Yeah.
And put that up.
Cut Oliver long.
Yeah.
Strong views.
Okay.
Pope in the UAE is quite a big deal. We should not let that go.
Yeah, day 3. I mean,
Yeah.
day. Well, I
Probably
think it's day 2 of activities, isn't it? He arrived.
Well, he's holding a mass in the site of the Great Mosque in Abu Dhabi, which is quite a big deal.
There'll
I
be
would say.
pictures today, won't there?
Yeah,
there are pictures already.
Yeah.
The match has been coming in live. I thought it was in a sports stadium.
It's a sports stadium, but you can see the,
He went to the mosque
Yeah,
yesterday.
We did some guests on it yesterday, but it's certainly worth marking when we see the picture today.
Yeah. Anything else anybody that we should be talking to, bidding
I
for?
was going to suggest the Warwick University story, which has been around for a few days. There was some male students who were banned for up to 10 years for being part of a WhatsApp group that talked about raping other students. And then they appealed and they were going to come back after a year's ban. And then there's been quite an outcry about that from female students on campus. And now, overnight, the Vice-Chancellor says those 2 male students won't be coming back, and it's been quite widely covered, but not the fact that they're now not coming back. It might be something we should try and get into today.
Yeah. On the university side, I think I can check that out for sure.
You said it's been running for a couple of days, but
Yes.
overnight you think it's moved?
Longer than that.
It's definitely been overnight.
Okay.
On the university side of things, I was quite interested in the David Harding, the self-made billionaire who's given £100 million to Cambridge. Obviously, Oxbridge generally has been criticised over recent years, really, about diversity, and this partly has been made to tackle that issue, but also the postgrad side, so underprivileged and diversity within Cambridge specifically. In this case, it's his alma mater.
He'd be a good live interview today,
Yeah.
wouldn't he? It's a hell of a lot of money, and the lack of diversity at Oxford and Cambridge is...
Yeah.
20 million for debt-free degrees.
Yeah.
How many does that buy you?
Get
Quite a few,
your calculators out. And last thing from me.
Sorry, so who's going to chase him?
We can chase that. We can put a bid in.
Okay.
And try and find out how to get hold of him. I wonder whether he's also accessible via business, but.
What's someone from Cambridge?
And last but not least, a couple of royal mentions. Couldn't leave without that. The Duchess of Cambridge is out today visiting a couple of schools, all to do with mental well-being, and Charles and Camilla are at the Supreme Court marking the 10th anniversary, so pictures there.
Okay. Michael, who's on Ian King?
Some good guests. We've got Sir George Buckley, who's the chairman of both Smiths and Stanley Black & Decker. and the MD of Bacardi UK. And we'll probably have a look at HMV, which is just breaking this morning, is being bought by a Canadian company, Sunrise Records. So they're saving 100 stores, but 27 will still close, so it's about 450 jobs. If you're interested in the
It's kind of slow death of HMV, isn't it, really?
Yeah. I mean, what's interesting about it, though, is it's Mike Ashley has lost out for once, because he was obviously interested in the HMV, but wanted rent holidays for 6 months. So obviously didn't get it this time.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much. Have a good day, everyone.
And that was the morning meeting. If you wanted to have a way of seeing just how collegiate an organisation Sky News is, I mean, that's a pretty good example. Input, output, digital, on-screen, all coming together. It's as much about finding out what the news actually is that day. That's why you had that brief by both foreign and home desks. But also other contributions were invited. You know, there were stories coming from Peter Diapre, someone I've known for a long, long time here at Sky News. But as well as finding out what the news is and prioritising that news, it's also a meeting that sets how we cover the news. Now, that doesn't just refer to digital, that doesn't just refer to television, it also refers to radio as well. And in a moment or two, we will be, and there he is, we will be able to speak to Ashish Joshi, who's going to bring us up to date with just, I mean, Sky News Radio, it's a central part of what we do here now, Ashish.
Yeah, it's a huge part of what we do here, and perhaps people don't completely realise just how big the radio operation at Sky is. When you think of Sky, you think Sky TV, you think online, digital, but in fact there are millions and millions, and Dave Terrace, the radio editor, will tell us exactly how many numbers are involved. Sky News Radio, huge operation. Just what are the numbers? Give us the overview.
So Sky News Radio caters for commercial radio, so there are about 300 radio stations in the UK, and the last audience figures are available suggest that nearly 36 million people listen to commercial radio. The nation really loves radio, so our job is to provide national and international news to all those commercial radio stations for them to be able to complement their own local news gathering. So what we do here, we use the might of the Sky News news gathering operation, and we convert that into radio material. So we write radio scripts, we take radio clips designed for bulletins, and we also do an on-the-hour, top-of-the-hour bulletin, which is exactly 2 minutes. Every station has the option to opt into that, but most will opt in out of hours, so evenings and weekends when stations aren't staffed. Some stations do staff 24 hours, others don't. So during the day, stations will use us primarily as a news resource, but in the evenings and overnights and weekends, they'll use us for the bulletins as well.
And there are all the new digital demands as well. People might be listening on their smart devices.
That's right. You can ask all the smart speakers, Alexa, Amazon Alexa, Google Home for the latest news from Sky News, and what will come up is the latest bulletin that we produced at the top of the hour, which is exactly 2 minutes.
Okay. Do your clients tell you what they want to serve their audiences, or do you tell them that this is what's happening today and this is what we'll be providing?
I think it's a bit of both, actually. So we're instinctively focused on stories which will cater for commercial radio. So we'll have a discussion about that. Charlie, who's just got in, will do a random ring around in a moment to talk to some of the stations about what they're liking, and then we'll base some of our news gathering on that. But we tend to have a good feel for what commercial radio stations...
Dave, I've got to leave you because I'm going to join one of your radio reporters, Laura, who is preparing to put a bulletin together, so hopefully we can walk across the newsroom floor. This is Paul Harrison on the home desk. You saw him earlier in our meeting. The reason I'm trying to hurry is because I've got to get to that radio studio before. Leela, if you can get the doors open. This is Leela. She's an output producer. She's helping me today. So we're going to walk in and hopefully Laura will be about to go on air. Hi, Laura. This is Laura. She's about...
This is IRN and Sky News Radio.
Lift the Premier League trophy!
From the Sky News Centre at 8, a fire in central Paris has killed at least 8 people. One woman's been arrested, as Simon English reports.
Around 200 firefighters were called to a residential building in the upmarket 16th arrondissement overnight. The district is home to famous museums and some of the city's wealthiest residents. More than 30 people were injured. Around 20 were rescued from windows or nearby roofs as flames leapt into the night sky. Prosecutors say this...
Breaking news, and 100 HMV stores have been bought by Canadian retailer Sunrise Records, saving almost 1,500 jobs. But 27 stores will close with immediate effect, with 455 redundancies. The world's first minister for suicide prevention says there's no doubt social media is playing a part in the number of young adults it's affecting. The latest figures show more than 5,800 people took their own lives in the UK in 2017. On Safer Internet Day, Jackie Doyle-Price says the normalisation of this content online poses a risk, particularly in younger people.
The internet generation, people access information all the time using their own devices, and so what starts off as feelings of anxiety and depression will lead people to
Theresa May is expected to acknowledge Brexit as a concerning time for those in Northern Ireland. In a speech today, she's due to insist she can get a withdrawal deal which avoids a hard border with the Irish Republic. Actor Liam Neeson's been accused of racism by online critics after revealing he once went looking for a black person to kill after a friend was raped. He admitted walking the streets with a weapon for about a week to seek revenge. In sport, Liverpool missed the chance to go 5 points clear at the top of the Premier League last night. They were held to a 1-1 draw by West Ham at the London Stadium. That's the latest. I'm Laura Safe.
Hey Laura, how did that go?
Yeah, it was all right. Not too bad. Bit nerve-wracking with the camera here, but yeah, all good.
Is it nerve-wracking anyway, thinking that when you're putting out one of your bulletins, tens of millions of people are listening to your every word?
Not really, no, not anymore. It is when I think about it too much, but no, you get used to it.
Do you ever get recognised for your voice?
No, not really. Sometimes I have in the past, but when I was working in sort of commercial radio stations and things like that.
You seem to be quite self-contained. You write your scripts, you control all the equipment. That's a lot of demand on you. It feels quite pressurised.
Yeah, well, we all work in a big team, so we all write scripts and then we all check each other's scripts, and then I just pick what I want to put in the bulletin every hour and then just collate the bulletins of about 6 stories and a couple of clips as well.
So did you say you were choosing the stories you want to put in your bulletin? So that's left up to you?
Yeah, so I pop them in and then I just double-check with the desk editor that he's fine with it or she's fine with it. And then if they want to change anything, then they'll just let me know that they've just swapped something around or changed something slightly.
Hopefully there are going to be lots of aspiring journalists watching Channel 523 today, and they haven't quite made up their minds on whether they want to be print journalists or radio journalists or TV journalists. Is there a completely different set of skills you need to be a radio journalist if you wanted to be a TV journalist, for example?
With radio, I guess it's just I suppose it's sort of more immediate than television. You don't need a camera. You can just record anywhere on your phone, anything. So
essentially, journalism is the same.
Yeah, it's exactly the same.
It's the way the scripts are written.
Yeah, the scripts are just slightly tighter. Sometimes the audiences are slightly different for radio than they are for television, depending on who your audience is. If you're working for sort of certain commercial radio stations, then it'll be different.
Okay. One top tip for an aspiring radio journalist?
Listen to, take loads of advice, ask loads of questions, and listen to what everybody tells you to do.
Okay, good advice. Laura Safe, thank you very much for giving us an insight into the world of radio. Neil.
Ashish, thanks very much. And thank you, Laura. Did you see they're hitting 8 absolutely second on? Is this giving you an idea of why we find this business so exciting? And just take you back to the morning meeting, the 7:30 editorial meeting, as we look at pictures from inside the gallery as Sunrise continues its show. We're into the last hour of Sunrise, in fact, and we'll be spending a bit of time with the Sunrise team after their show as well. But let's just go back to that editorial meeting and the point of it. I mean, as we were describing, it is about flagging up what the big stories of the day are, and working out how we're going to do them, who's going to do them, and how we get them on air. But it's also... there are also a few technical terms that might have been mentioned there. One of you has been getting in touch, and if you have got any questions, tweet them using the hashtag that you can see at the bottom right of the screen there, Sky News Raw. One question was, what is bidding? It was mentioned an awful lot during that morning meeting. Are we going to bid for this? Are we going to bid for that? That, in essence, means, oh, we're just going to try and speak to them. We bid for an interview. So whenever you hear people using that particular phrase, that's what we're talking about. Are we bidding for the Foreign Office? Are we bidding for Liam Neeson's agent? Are we bidding for X, Y, Z? So that's, keep your questions coming in. We're just having a quick look around the newsroom, and as you can see, Ashish is just parked himself. We'll give him a minute or two to get himself settled. But central to any news organisation, particularly any television news organisation, are the desks, the home desk and the foreign desk. The foreign desk deals with everything that is outside of the UK. The home desk, everything domestically. And of course, different days have different news agendas. Different days there are big stories outside of the UK that we would choose to lead on. But in general, the bulk of our news comes from via the home desk. And our series of bureau up and down the country. James Matthews, of course, up in Scotland. Many of you will be very familiar with Gerard Tubb up in the northeast as well. All of them being brought in by the home desk, being allocated a story to proceed with, and after that point, depending on the story, sometimes you are pretty much left to your own devices. Just going to see if we can bring Ashish back in, because he's going to be chatting to that chap that's standing there with the phone to his ear, Paul Harrison. Now, he was formerly one of our royal correspondents, a big fan of red trousers, which he asked me not to mention on air today. Those two facts entirely unrelated, of course. But now, of course, as home news editor, he sets the tone, sets the agenda, and tells correspondents what to do. Ashish is here. Ashish, come on, let's go pester Harrison for a while, shall we?
Let's go and talk to Paul Harrison. Pester? Probably not. He might be a little busy. I've been told to pester you by Neil.
You've been told to be nice to me, is what you...
We heard you in the morning meeting today. You're the man in the hot seat, driving the news agenda, as it were, today. Lots of responsibility on your shoulders. Do you ever worry about just how much is going on and how you're going to cope on a day-to-day basis?
Every minute of every day. There's a lot going on today. So it is a juggling act, as any news editor would know, on any newspaper or news channel. It's about making sure you don't drop a ball, if you can help it, that you've got the right people doing the right stories, being in the right place at the right time. So
I was going to say, is it a question of logistics, moving your assets around to meet the demands which are being made constantly of you by your output team?
Yes, it's a bit, it's a bit like this is the pressure point, if you like, from making sure that the programmes get what they want when they want it. That we're not forgetting that there are other things that are required from the reporters, the camera crews, engineers, because the planning are looking at tomorrow. So I've got pressures for tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, the pressures for now, and so it's about trying to make sure everyone gets a decent bite of the cherry. Obviously, the focus has to be principally on today, because we're having to do the news now. We're having to react to stuff that we don't know about. Obviously, we're doing the things that we do know about, but things will happen through the day, and we've got to be on top of that.
What our viewers will know is that you are a correspondent, a legion, an army of fans, a royal correspondent, travel the world. How different does it feel to be here? And does that give you a completely different skill set? You understand the pressures on your teams out in the field. Is that what you bring to this job?
Well, I think that having worked in the field does help to then come on the news desk, and therefore you do have a bit of an understanding about what it's like in the field. I can just feel my phone vibrating now as we speak, as someone's going, "You don't think that at all." But actually, having been on air before for around sort of 12, 13, 14 years or so, you do understand the kind of pressures, the demands. Obviously, they are different now. I think the demands are greater now, so you have to bear that in mind because of all the platforms that you have to provide for. It's not just telly, it's mobile, it's online, it's radio. And so there are a great number of pressures on not just the reporters. You have to remember that behind the reporters and the correspondents, there is a team of cameras, engineers. It's a massive team effort, and you've got to make sure everyone doesn't get run ragged.
I'm going to go and talk to one of your colleagues in a minute, but just before we go, I'm sure lots of people want to know is, do you miss being out in the field? Do you like being on a news desk?
I do, especially on days like today when it's raining.
And I'm sure all of your correspondents out in the field who are standing under a cloud will thank you for that.
It's just worth mentioning, of course, the other reason that I came off air is that I have to leave it to the good-looking ones, like David Bowden.
Thank you, Paul. You're very busy. I'll leave you alone. I'm going to talk to your colleague on the foreign desk. This is Andy Marsh, who was just talking to Peter Diaparis and some instructions from the foreign desk to the floor.
Information as much as anything else, actually. Just, we did an interview with John Oliver in the States yesterday, and it was about whether it was a one-camera, two-camera shoot, which basically affects our sort of editing capabilities and what we can actually do with it.
Your job, I was just talking to Paul Harrison on the home desk, is it the same sort of job, or does yours change because of your geography, and your remit's much larger, isn't it?
Well, it is, but then we're not self-reliant on gathering picture. So I think on a domestic level, on the home desk, it's like if there's a story that develops in whatever it is, whether it's Wigan or the West End, Sky are responsible for gathering their own picture and voices. We do deploy on such as Venezuela. We've deployed on. I mean, there are two classic examples today. Venezuela, we've got two teams deployed on that, which we will gather our own material, but we also have sort of partnerships with broadcasters over there and agencies, and that sort of supplements, because obviously we can't get everything on such a wide scale. And then the other sort of headline story today is the fire in Paris, which we've sort of taken a active decision not to go at the moment, because it's a straightforward sort of tragic event. Keeping an eye, but we will gather pictures from. We have partners, our French partners. We do picture exchanges with, so we can still tell that story, but we don't actually have to go to gather it ourselves.
And I suppose because you're working across so many time zones, at the back of your mind, you're always wary of waking up that correspondent in the middle of the night and making that call, and having to live with that decision all the time, I guess.
And quite often you wake people up unnecessarily, but sometimes you've got to wake. You've got to speak to somebody. If there's an earthquake in whatever territory it might be in the middle of the night, you've got to. It's almost like you've got to err on the side of caution, and if you need to get somebody moving and somebody up on that, you cannot be behind the curve. So you've got to call them, and I think they live with that as a way of life almost.
And I suppose, Andy, you're thinking all the time as well when you're deploying correspondents into hostile zones. Yes. You're always thinking about risk management as well.
100%, yes, yeah. I mean, more and more, I think, I would say over the last 10 years, the whole risk assessment side of things has really come to the fore. So we have procedures in place, not just on a sort of administrative level, but also very much on a practical level as well. And I would say the majority of people who work on this desk, and certainly on the planning side of things, have all been deployed to sort of hostile environments. So there is you need an element of sort of basic background knowledge.
I was talking to Paul a little earlier on, and I suppose your background's a little similar. You were out in the field. You've got years and years of foreign news gathering experience. You were in Brussels as the bureau chief there. Do you miss being on the road, or do you like being behind a desk?
I certainly miss the adrenaline of it and the pace. I think when you're on the desk, it's a little more, life is a little more predictable and stable. But what we try and do here is, I think the people who are best at this job are people who have operated in the field, and vice versa. The people who are best in the field are also connected to the newsroom and understand how it works. So we try and mix it up a little bit. So you've got a bit of this, but then also getting out and about to stories as and when appropriate. I did 10 years non-stop on the road, which was, that can be quite draining. So it's quite nice to have a bit of a to pull back a little bit and have a better balance.
And thank you very much, Andy. A little insight into how Sky News manages its award-winning foreign news operation there.
And that is the thing you often forget working at Sky News. When I first started, I was surrounded at Westminster by people like Peter Lowe, who you've already seen, Adam Bolton. The people who have worked for Sky News, and Andy Marsh, as he was saying, that has worked for Sky for 16 years, have an incredible amount of experience. And it is rare, in fact, I think it's almost impossible to find a senior member of staff who isn't keen on helping everyone out. I mean, Andy Marsh was, you might remember, Alex Crawford's road into Tripoli. He was on that 4x4 with her, making sure that coverage happened. His 6 years that took place at the 6 years that he was working in Brussels, any number of stories. Now, what we're having a look at the moment is the mobile huddle. Mark Alford, that you can see there in the middle of your screen, leading that meeting. So let's have a listen in and see another part of Sky News and the way that it prioritises and works out how we tell the story.
With auto-tweeting button.
Thomas, you
go out last night, and I don't know what more we can do apart from keep mentioning it.
There was a suggestion the other day that maybe we could do what we did with these sensitive video and just have it automatically off. Is that possible for soon, maybe? So that you have to opt in, exactly.
Yeah. Well, I think that the problem with that is you need to remember to switch them on. That's the issue, because it's really
well. It's less dangerous, though.
It prompts you. It won't let you do anything until you choose an option.
That's probably a good idea.
That's a really good
Okay.
Okay.
All right. I better make a note of that. Okay, what else we got? Ronan is on his way back from Poland. He'll be back in the newsroom mid-morning, I hope, the traffic permitting. Bethan is on day one of her new secondment in social, and Emily is on day two of being mobile, and
best of, and Divider, of course, is there as well. So well worth pushing.
Is it still Mosul Snatch Squads at the top?
Yeah,
I think it probably
Mosul
is.
Snatch Squad and Mexico Narco State.
Yeah.
Okay. Most popular story yesterday was the Salah plane discovery again. We're pulling out of Guernsey today, but obviously if you see anything on any rivals or any social media, flag it to the home desk, because it's doing rather well for us, so we need to keep across that. Anwar, over to you.
Okay, I'll start with Salah. We'll obviously keep an eye on Salah, and then Brexit. Theresa May is going to Northern Ireland today. She'll make a speech at 12 o'clock. We're going to kick off a live blog ahead of that. It might go for about an hour, and then we'll see what lines come out of it. There's a few kind of comings and goings in number 10 before she heads off to Northern Ireland as well. Cabinet meeting, 9:30. She's also meeting this working group to discuss, where we're going with the EU, and also we've kind of kicked off with a story on what Merkel said last night. Some fairly positive things about Brexit. So our Millbank team, Aubrey Allegretti, will be across most of that with some support from here.
So Aubrey will do the blog?
Aubrey will almost certainly do the blog.
And do you know who's going to do snap analysis yet, or is that still to be decided?
No, we don't know yet. They're going to decide it.
And then Faisal at the end of the day?
Yeah, so Faisal's is in Northern Ireland with Theresa May.
Okay.
And he'll file us some analysis at the end of the day. Okay. Other things this morning, nasty story, Paris fire, which in a nice part of Paris, killed 8 people. Number of people killed might go up. And we've got a good bit of video on that, which is on the app already. And sorry? Yeah, and it looks like it's arson. The Paris police have arrested a woman, so we'll just keep an eye on that.
Okay,
Ian, if you just keep an eye on what's going on with that. There's a few other bits and pieces. Our IS stuff by Alex Crawford interviewing 2 UK doctors and a pharmacist, still doing very well, so we'll just keep that up for a bit. Venezuela, keeping an eye on that. The story's been kind of doing quite well for us as well. There's been some development last night with lots of Latin American countries kind of urging Maduro to let some food.
So what have we done with that? Because we had the interview with Maduro, and now we've had the South American countries saying that they want the military to side with the opposition. So
we've updated the copy on that at the moment.
Is it high up?
Yeah.
It's reasonably high up, but it would have pushed the Trump quotes too far down if I put it any higher.
Okay.
So it's a bit midway.
Okay. Can you take another look and see if a joint intro would work?
Yeah.
Let's have a look.
Yeah.
Has it been explained about why the military is still on his side? Like, is it because they get paid lots of money?
So,
because we had the Air Force.
So we've got Dom
defecting,
doing lives on it today. So we should get Dom to file that analysis.
Yeah, because without the military on side, he's basically, he's not going to be president anymore.
That would be the tip. Yeah, if the military turns against him, then.
And it's already started, but there's not enough to come.
Okay. What else you got, Anwar?
Pope, good pitches, mass in UAE, big. It's quite big, so I think Will, you're going to look at doing a bit of that. We've written a story. You're still writing, Emily, on carers. Hundreds of people quitting their jobs to look after loved ones. I think you're almost done with that, are you?
Yeah.
Cool. So we're doing that. Couple of other things. We're putting together a piece which Amanda Walker filed last night. It's, Divided United States, which is kind of a
so
look
this
ahead.
is the update to the original interactive. Why is America so polarised? And she's filed quite a good analysis about that. And
okay, can we project that well, because it'll do a good job previewing the
obviously
State of the
Union is a great peg to do it.
Yeah, our missing Hull student, we're keeping an eye on that. Libby Squire, her parents made an appeal last night, so our desks are keeping a very close eye on that. A few other bits and bobs. On our TV channel, we're going to have the spitting image.
Actually, that's one for you, Will.
Spitting image of Margaret Thatcher.
Margaret Thatcher's on at AOP today. So the spitting image version.
Nice.
So
like the old spitting image.
Amazing. Yeah. So that'll be a good viral bit video.
Yeah. So I mean, those are things we're watching. And Charles and Camilla in court today. It's the Supreme Court's 10th anniversary. So another 20 years before they catch up with Sky News. So Charles and Camilla in court, that might be quite a nice picture of them maybe sitting on the Supreme Court judges' benches.
We're just putting the audio of the Liam Neeson interview.
Oh yeah, and also I'll mention a Liam Neeson story, which is, we've got some audio which we're going to
Well, I think there was a glitch with the version that went out on TV that you could sort of see the swear word for a second, but I'm doing another version, so I was about to cut it.
Thanks, Will. So we make sure we give that a good show.
Okay,
does it... Updates to the Liam Neeson story turn of politics.
Oh yeah, good point, Grant. A couple of other cases, including Hatton Garden trial of the man known as Basil, which we're keeping a close eye on. State of the Union, I'll mention, that's Trump made funding to do it, but that's going to be overnight for us, about 2 o'clock in the morning our time.
Yep.
There's that. I think, I've got a couple of things on my list, but...
okay, let's go around. Which way do you want to go?
I'll throw it out. Shall we go to Gemma?
Oh, hang on. Yeah, let's go Gemma, and then we'll go to the artist formerly known as Alex Martin. Gemma, what have you got on Showbiz?
Just before Showbiz, I don't know if you've seen this. Adam Parker just sent an email from Staffordshire Police saying...
I haven't.
You've seen that?
I haven't seen
you have.
What is it?
4 children who died in a house fire in Staffordshire.
4 children?
Yeah.
Right.
House fire.
Do you want to do that as a brief, yeah?
Thanks, Tom.
A break and a push.
Connor, do you want to oversee the push? All right, so Gemma, Showbiz.
So Angelina Jolie going to Bangladesh to...
Yeah, sorry, I think we put that top, actually.
Yes.
We put that top. Tom, yeah?
That's fine, yeah. I'm just looking for the content.
Thank you.
It's okay.
Yeah, go on.
Angelina Jolie going to is in Bangladesh visiting Rohingya. There's pictures I've seen on Getty that we can
Yeah,
use.
that's good. I had that on my list actually.
Yeah,
that's good,
so I can do that.
Yeah.
Paul McCartney has got a gold Blue Peter badge, which is
a gold Blue Peter badge.
Yeah.
For doing what?
For his services to music, I think.
Oh,
Peter Jackson got one last year, I think, but they're sort of
took him a long
very
time
rare.
to get a badge.
Only a few people have them, but yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Okay. That's
I don't know.
quite fun.
I don't know if it's sort of a fairly newish thing. I'm not sure. I'll have to look into it, but yes, that's a nice
that's
one.
great.
And then obviously I'll look out for any Liam Neeson.
Liam Neeson,
as
yeah.
well. And then...
Yeah, keep an eye on Liam Neeson, yeah.
Yeah. And then another... This isn't an Ent story, and I haven't... where have I put it? I haven't actually seen this anywhere. I've just seen it on Twitter. I haven't had a look to see if anyone had reported on it, but it's quite an unusual one. This... let me find it on Twitter. A woman who had a brain tumour... she's tweeted saying, "I sent my brain tumour to Antarctica and this is now my favourite photo of all time." And
well, she actually sent her brain tumour.
This woman, so a woman here called Ariel Waldman, who says she's a NASA advisor on Twitter, took it to Antarctica, and they've taken this kind of...
What, her actual brain tumour?
Yeah.
And just go in and...
What, in like a jar?
Yeah.
And,
okay. Just send me that link, I'll have a look at it. Yeah.
I mean,
it's just a really sort of...
That's extraordinary on so many levels.
And the pictures.
Yeah.
Okay, I reckon that should be on the list. Okay, so dressed for the job that he wants, not the one he's got. It's science and tech reporter.
Thanks, Mark. I was at NATO HQ in Brussels and a military base in Mons yesterday.
What you're looking at the moment is the mobile team. You'll have heard just during that discussion that a story got mentioned that there's been a house fire, fatalities, and then there was mention of what's known as a push notification. Get your mobile phone out and just have it close to hand. In the next few seconds, what you will get is that notification sent straight to your phone. We tend to do this only with really significant bits of news or, set piece events. It's not something that we try. You'd certainly get rather annoyed if your phone were buzzing all day long. But let's just see if we can just have a little listen in and see if we're getting close to the point of it being sent.
We just need breaking images, Mark. House fire in Staffordshire.
Follows on from the duty of care.
Children died in Staffordshire. House fire.
Yeah, that's good. So that was a mail splash.
4 children
DCS didn't release it under embargo. The mail splash prominently features the minister. I'm not sure where they got it from. Sunrise is doing it. I don't know if he wants to hold back and wait to check against delivery when the speech is given, or if we should just get out. Okay. A study was published in Nature Astronomy reveals the Milky Way is a tad twisted. The embargo on that lifted yesterday, but our readers haven't seen it, and pictures for it. And additionally, Roland Manthorpe had a sit-down with Marguerite Vestager. That VT went at 6 o'clock this morning. He's filed, you can get that piece out, talking about digital journalism.
Are you going to look out for that?
Yeah.
Cool.
Can you just check your intro? Yeah, I mean, a lot of journalists have lost their jobs. That's great.
Thank you, mate. Okay, so you're doing the nature stuff first, right?
No, I'm going to do the Margaret James stuff first.
Okay.
And if you've got your mobile phone to hand, you'll have just had a notification that says that gives you the information about that house fire in Staffordshire. So that is how quickly that we can operate here. Literally in that meeting that you were watching there, a news story drops. A news story found a bit of information I think was from one of the wire services. Decisions taken to get it out there as soon as possible, and that little link will take you to a holding page of the website where soon there'll be more information. Just had a question from Imran asking just how many meetings there are that take place through the day. There are quite a few. You might have heard a little bit of a giggle from colleagues in this alternative gallery here. Story meetings essentially at 7:30, 9:30 and 3 o'clock. Planning meetings looking forward to coverage later in the day and days to come. Those take place around 10:15, 3:30, 5:15, and the digital huddle that you've seen. This kind of mobile-only get-together. That's at 8:15 and at 2:30. So plenty of meetings that take place through the day. I mean, in general, back in my days as a reporter, we weren't really welcomed with open arms into those morning meetings, because in essence that's where some of your colleagues talk about how you did the day before and whether or not you were going to get a decent story that day. So, of course, I made a point of showing up to them from time to time. That led to one of the characters that you've seen on screen earlier, Paul Harrison, former royal correspondent, currently Home News editor. He can do a remarkable impersonation of our head of news, John Riley, who we'll be speaking to a little bit later on today, and he has used it on 5 separate occasions to play tricks on me. We might be getting our own back today, Paul.
In Thailand, a lorry overturned and unleashed 80,000 cans of beer into the street.
So there is, except the kick, everything is synthesizer and of course the voice of Donna.
Yeah, and when you hear the intro to that song, you
Thanking
immediately
next.
know what it is. It is iconic, as are you.
And let's take you back inside the gallery
close
where
the LED
Sunrise is still
screen,
going on. Neil Hunter there is one of our directors at Sky, but in that position, I suspect he'll be the technical. Oh no, in fact, no, he is directing the show. Mike Kumar at the bottom left there. We're in the middle of an interview, so you often don't hear very much chat in the gallery at times like this.
Close the screen. Stand by.
Weather bumper next. Stand by weather bumper.
Stand by TX. And take us TX. Weather bumper, stand by camera 4.
So 45 on
TX
weather
is transmission, and as you can see on the screen there, that's them running the bumper, as we call it, a little bit of advertising that takes us into the weather with Nazanin.
And today will be no exception, although to begin with...
Whilst the weather is going on in the VR screen area of Studio 6, as you can see, Sarah Jane still talking to the guests that we've had in the studio. Basically, it is just easier from a practical point of view to keep your guests sitting down before you get them out of the studio. Otherwise, they have an alarming tendency to walk in front of cameras, which galleries, particularly directors, don't like very much.
20
TX. Will become dry and brighter. Meanwhile, there will be sunshine for a time before it becomes cloudy
15.
across the Midlands, central, southern and eastern England. As I said, across eastern areas it will stay
10,
for much
9,
of this afternoon.
8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And take us TX. And we're on a bumper and a break.
Thanks, Naz. Actually, give me 55 there.
Let's get some photos.
Yeah.
Stand up. You go stand up.
Story 114.
Hello.
Take the PS5 away from you now instead of grabbing bottoms.
No worries. Lovely.
And in a microcosm, that is what goes on in the gallery from day to day. We have at times that we're supposed to try and hit the brakes. That often doesn't happen because of news or items overrunning. But timing is everything. There is a set point at which we have to come off here unless there is breaking news, and we do what's known as dropping the brake. Sometimes we also crash the brake. That's why a big breaking event takes place, or there's a big live event that takes place, and we want to get to it, but unfortunately we're on the commercial break. We will crash into it.
I'll do it.
It's all pretty much seat the pants stuff, but again, that's what makes it so much fun.
Just a little disco move. So what's your favourite disco move?
This one.
Yeah, okay, we'll do that one. Ready?
Okay.
Yeah.
3, 2, 1, keep going. Let's go.
Become famous.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Right?
There you go, look. Woo, perfect.
And if you want to find out what Sarah Jane was up to there, just check one of our many social media channels. You'll find it there in about 30 seconds or so, I would imagine.
Thank you so much. It was so good to meet you.
Good luck. See you in Manchester.
Oh, what good fun.
And that, for people of a certain age, is Giorgio Moroder, I've just realised. You get Giorgio Moroder in on the day that I'm not working on Sunrise. Fantastic.
Thanks. She knows, because she's mic'd me up.
Good fun.
That was great. And then 118 Tash needs coding as well.
It'll be a map.
Well, as we watch Giorgio Moroder leave the studio, let's return to Ashish Joshi. Now, where are you now, Ashish? That looks like a very relaxing cafe area.
So
It is a relaxing cafe area. It's the bistro. I'm on the second floor outside the newsroom. I'm going to hand you straight over to Adam J and his output team. They're deciding what stories are going to go to air, how they're going to be treated, and what correspondence are attached to those stories. So you can tune in now.
So it's already been sorted.
we've got the clip, great. Okay, so that's presumably the bit that has been legal to go out, and we will stick with that. Again, that's Maz looking after that. John Bond's going to Wilmslow, so he'll be down the line. Okay? There is a possible story we will cover. I think 4 or 5 paedophile hunters arrested in Leeds overnight for false detention, false imprisonment. Mark White's going to look at that because he's done a big piece on it last year that we can use bits and pieces of. We will see where that goes, whether or not. We will speak to him, and then Jess is going to look after all of this. What we might do is have, so Ashish and Katie are looking after the Raw channel when it's on air. When either of them aren't on air, we might get them to come and talk to you and explain exactly what's going on. There are also a couple of pieces running from Roland Manthorpe and
specifically referred to Sky News Raw. The Manthorpe one can kind of run by itself. It's more on news funding. a better look at the newspaper industry and how it hasn't translated to digital.
So that's more to do with the 7 o'clock special that they did last night?
Yes.
Okie doke. Then there are a couple of nice pieces that started running last night that we will carry on running. One is the ISIS prisoners, Alex Crawford's piece.
Oh, yeah.
Written to Irish nationals who claim to be innocent and want help from their governments. And there is George Mitchell spoken to us.
Excited.
That would be difficult. Not to get excited.
It's always a laugh at the meeting, isn't it?
So George Mitchell interview about the Good Friday Agreement. Other bits and pieces we are looking at. HMV has been bought out of administration, probably just a nib unless we guessed it. I suppose we could do an Ian King.
Not Ashley.
Not Ashley, so Ashley has lost his bid. Could get Ian King up at some point. And then Hatton Garden trial gets underway today. I think the prosecution outlined their case yesterday. We might hear from the defence today.
Martin Brunt.
Not Martin Brunt. I think that's Adele. I don't think Brunt is around today. Alcohol use and misuse stats out at 9:30. We will just have a look at those and see whether they merit any inclusion.
And just a couple of other things. Venezuela, pressure's still up on Maduro, so we'll just keep that going. Dominic Waghorn can do a few set turns. And the other story we quite like is the carers, the 1 in 7 carers, having to either take time off work or extended time off work or just give up their jobs completely, and sort of calls for workplaces to be a bit more understanding and build in proper time off. That's quite good, isn't it? It is quite a good talking point, I think.
David Goodhart might come in. David Goodhart, who came in about 2 months ago, author of The Road to Somewhere. He's very good on paying carers. That there's this great army of unpaid carers providing childcare and elder care, etc.
Yeah.
Policy exchange.
Right,
Okay. We have a State of the Union disco set up at 11:30 that we might postpone until tomorrow, until after the event.
Okay.
Let's see how we do for times, because there's a lot of long VTs, and we've just had John Barnes added to the rundown for the 11 o'clock. So let's see how we stand for time. But, I mean, if we get David Goodhart, we could slot him in as a single guest instead of that disco.
I feel arguably you could just do that tomorrow. Just move it to...
All right, and there is a fake news disco at 12:30 as well.
The Thatcher puppet, the spitting image puppet, might make a nice nib in the bulletin. It's on AOP.
And we can fair deal vegetables. They'll have what.
Great.
Oh, and Lucy, did you want to mention the vase story as well?
There's a lovely story this morning about a lady who's discovered a vase in her attic, and it's been sold for £600,000. Needless to say, it's come through a relation who was given it by somebody in China who had a link to a Chinese emperor. So
where is she in the UK?
I believe the lady who had it doesn't want to be named, but it was in the UK, and it's gathering dust.
Fantastic.
Worth a fortune.
I think the auction house, and
Right.
hopefully some people come back. We'll try and get on, because I think the afternoon we're interested as well. So we'll see what they come back with and see when we can get them on.
Bit of fun.
Bit of light and colour.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Anybody got anything else?
The philanthropist, the physics grad.
Yes.
100 million quid. All right, he's got $1 billion, but 100 million quid's still a lot of money to give away, isn't it?
Yeah, it's been going through Cambridge, I think, and through his company.
Okay.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, look, let's go over and talk to Adam and Colin. Colin, you're about to go on air. Are you happy with the way the news is shaping up? Some breaking news stories. You've got the fire to deal with, 2 fires.
Yeah, I mean, as always, we sit there in the 7:30 meeting, you get an agenda, and you look at your rundown, you think that's pretty much going to fill it, and then throughout the day, within an hour or so, I mean, it sounds like a pretty tragic story, and we're just getting details through of it now, so got our correspondent on the way there.
Colin, as an anchor, how much of an input do you have into these editorial meetings? Are you just given the stories and you go off and prepare yourself?
Depends how you're feeling. Depends whether you're revved up.
How are you feeling today?
Yeah, quite revved up. I mean, it's a quiet news day. It's a patchy news day, isn't it? But yeah, I mean, you have certain hobby horses. One of mine, suggests a guest who may come through for us or not. You can shape it. You can shape it to a great degree.
Yeah. And how fluid do you have to be? Because it's changing all the time.
Well, don't you? You can spend 2 hours preparing for an interview or a story that then, for technical reasons, doesn't happen. That happens quite a bit. So you have to, dance on a pin a little bit. You've got to be quite flexible and quite fleet-footed, for sure.
Yeah. And Adam, are you happy with what's been given to you today, or do you always go back and say, sorry, I just can't cope with this, I need more reporters, I need more camera crews?
There's always a resources issue. Most of the time we've got people who can get to where they need to be. Don't think it looks like there's going to be an issue today. We will always try to make sure that everything fits in the time that we're given.
Okay, good.
Sure, we've stressed interest in truth-telling issues, that normally there's quite a lot of gallows humour, which you won't be surprised to know we excised from that meeting.
I thought that was quite a tame meeting, actually. I was quite surprised. But, hey, look, good luck. We'll be speaking to you as you prepare to go on air and while you're on air as well. And, Adam, good luck with your news gathering and your programme and your outputs today. We are going to go back into the newsroom in a little while to talk to the head of Sky News, John Riley. That should be an interesting interview.
One for you to mind your P's and Q's on, definitely, Ashish. We're straight back into the newsroom. A number of meetings, of course, taking place across the organisation, as much as anything else, just to make sure that we're all singing from the same hymn sheet, that we know the stories that we want to hit. But as you've also heard, and you've probably also seen as we've moved through those meetings, there has already been an evolution to the news. Stories have cropped up that weren't there when we sat down at 7:30. There are all now being busily added to rundowns. Correspondents who weren't assigned to stories are already getting into their cars and heading out on the road. And a little later on, in fact, on Sky News Raw, we'll be following around Sally Lockwood as she covers a story from start to finish. We're entering into the last kind of 20 minutes of Sunrise. That is a shift and a half for the people that work on that programme. I wake up at around about 2:30, and I'm generally off for 3:30. The team have been in before midnight. That doesn't mean that eyes get taken off the ball. Certainly we always meet, and in fact we'll be showing you a little bit of it afterwards, a little debrief huddle in the same place as the output team was just meeting to plan ahead for Colin's show. Given we just mentioned Colin, there is a man who is, the consummate presenter. He's intelligent, he's smart, he's eloquent and unflappable, which I have to say I think is probably the quality that you need most to do the job that he does. He was formerly, of course, a correspondent, a reporter out in the field, worked as a Europe correspondent for an extended period of time. And that does play into it. Don't have to have been a reporter to be a presenter, but sometimes it helps. Mike Bradbury there, news editing on the home desk once again. Now, final preparations are being made as we move from this building down to Westminster for all-out politics. It's been a huge priority, of course, in the lead-up to that 2016 referendum and in the aftermath, that we give as much resource as we can to our politics programmes and indeed our politics department. You can just see over the camera there Adam Bolton, our editor-at-large, busily prepping for the show. He also generally tends to have a little quick chat with Sarah Jane on Sunrise, a little throw-ahead, as we call it, a little tease to the programme. Not sure if that's happening today. Sometimes it gets dropped. This is the man who will be running the next show from 9 o'clock. Here's Wisby.
And make sure I'm logged in.
And for a variety of reasons that I won't bore you with, we use a different gallery for the programme from Westminster than the gallery that we are currently using for Sunrise. So there's a bit of technical jiggery-pokery that needs to take place and a few seats that need to be moved.
The Midlands, can't we? After
Do keep your questions coming in. Chris Houston, who in fact I know, has emailed in asking, how do you deal with reading the auto cue whilst you've got all those voices in your ear? Do you know what? From a presenter's point of view, and I can't speak for everyone, that part of it is not difficult. When you're reading from a script, it's quite easy to compartmentalise one part of your brain to deal with the stuff that you're reading and saying out loud, and the other part of your brain to listen to the voices in your ear. As our producer in the gallery just mentioned, it does rather depend on the director that you have there. There's some directors speak more, some directors speak less. A happy medium is always best, I find.
So the business of this, is and the demand for people paying actually has stayed very consistent for the last 20 years. The thing that's changed
And Ashish is there in the newsroom once again. Ashish, where are you now? I think you were mentioning you're going to be talking to our head of news, John Riley. Been head of news since when?
2006, John Riley took over as head of Sky News. He's been here much longer than that, of course, and even longer in television. Look, this is the newsroom. It's quite quiet at the moment. Everyone's busy after their morning meetings, deciding what they have to do. And on this side of the newsroom, just to give you a sense of the geography, looking out across at all of this. In this office, first thing you notice, no walls, no doors. This is John Riley behind his desk, hard at work. Good morning, John.
Hi, good morning.
How are you?
I'm very good.
Good.
Yeah.
Look, one of the first things that has to be asked is, when you announced this idea of Sky News Raw, it was met with incredulity. It was just, why on earth would you let so many cameras into a working news environment? Why are you doing this, John?
We decided today to let the cameras in behind the scenes in our control rooms, in our meeting rooms, in the newsroom, to talk to people and see how we work. Because I feel very strongly that it's important that news organisations are transparent about the decisions they take. I'm keen that we demonstrate that we're a group of people who come to work non-stop, 24/7, to try and make stories that are significant and relevant to our audiences without any particular agenda. Our aim is to offer and produce world-class independent news. And I think it's good to try and knock down the barriers. I also think that I hope in a very small way what we're doing today will encourage young men and women from all sections of British society to want to work in television, whether it's as a camera operator, a sound recordist, as a floor manager, on air, or as someone who makes decisions behind the scenes, to see that actually anyone could work in television and it's not the preserve of a privileged elite.
Yeah, that's one of the things, before we talk about the past, in the present, when you look out across your newsroom, it's a very diverse newsroom, and that's one of the things you're very keen on engaging with, is people from not the traditional backgrounds who work in television news, but trying to get other people interested in what we do.
Yeah, the people here are responsible for the recruitment of both technical teams and journalists and on-air staff have gone out of their way the last 5-6 years to try and encourage people who wouldn't naturally think of a career in television to think about it, because it's great fun. I mean, like all jobs, it has its ups and downs, but it's great fun, and you get to work on some really exciting projects, both in front of the camera and behind the camera. And remember as well, Sky News is now a multi-product news organisation, so there's opportunities in radio and opportunities, of course, in digital journalism.
Yeah, you were talking about transparency. I guess, as the head of Sky News, that's one of your biggest challenges, is to restore trust in journalism and restore trust in media, not just in Sky News, but media in general.
Yeah, I take issue a bit with your word restore. I mean, I've been lucky enough to have worked at, on the BBC 9 o'clock news, as it was then, 30 years ago, on News at 10 in the days of Trevor McDonald and even Alistair Burnett, and here for a very long time. I think broadcast news has a very strong track record of offering accurate news and current affairs. So I don't think it's an issue of restoring trust. I think the mainstream broadcasters have a very strong record of offering the British public and international audiences, in our case, accurate, impartial news. So I think it's a question of restoration.
How do you convince people that Sky News, other news organisations in this country are to be trusted? Because we've seen, with the advent of Trump and America and what's happening there, fake news. We didn't even talk about fake news 5 years ago. Suddenly it's on everyone's lips. Is that one of your biggest challenges?
Yeah, it's a challenge, but it's always a challenge to ensure, as I said earlier, I guess, that we are really rigorous in our journalism. And I don't think, you know, some organisations have hired fact checkers and all that. I think it's about employing men and women who are very focused on pursuing the truth, very focused on getting the facts right. Accurate news is about checking information and getting the facts right. And if you're not sure about something, don't broadcast it, don't publish it. Get the facts right. And it may take a while to confirm a story, or if you're not sure about the entire validity of a story as it's developing, tell your audiences what you do know and you're 100% sure and what you're not entirely sure about. Be straight and honest and transparent with them.
Sure. I suppose so much has changed while you've been a journalist, but Sky has always been one of those organisations with a reputation for being first and fast. Has that changed with the advent of social media? Is that still our raison d'etre? Do we still pay more attention to breaking news because that's what the public tunes into Sky News for? Or can we beat Twitter? Can we beat the other social media platforms?
Well, we can beat them by
breaking news.
We can beat them by being right. So on Saturday, for instance, our city editor, Mark Kleinman, broke the story that Nissan was no longer going to carry on with the production of its new model of car in Sunderland. A big story with very significant repercussions for the northeast of England and beyond. Sky News, I guess, has changed a little bit. It's no longer just about straps across the bottom of the screen. We employ a number of specialists, our political team, our foreign affairs team. We have a lot of bureaus around the world in business and economics, as I've mentioned, and in science and technology. And we expect them to find out what's going on and reveal stories, come up with original, distinct journalism. So Sky is still about big coverage of big breaking news events, terrible things like the Grenfell fire that you were involved in that morning. But it's also about offering original, distinct journalism. And I think one can outdo the likes of Twitter.
All right, look, I'm running out of time. There's so many questions I wanted to ask you. First of all, in your years at Sky News, your top 3 stories that you've been involved in?
In Sky News?
Yes.
I like big stories with consequences. So September the 11th, 2001, 9/11 was a massive story. A big story with very significant geopolitical consequences well after the date itself. That was a big deal for me and for Sky. I like the campaigns that Sky News has run. We led the charge on the election for TV election debates in 2009, 2010, trying to be more transparent with court coverage and get the cameras into courts with the other broadcasters, and of course our campaign on single-use plastic. Journalism can be a force for good. The final thing, stories, I like bizarre stories. And I wasn't the boss, it's a long time ago, 15 years ago. We did a story about a horse on a farm in Northamptonshire, and it loved playing football. And we sent a team off to cover it, and we had this horse dribbling the ball live. And I think that's what television should really sort of revel in, you know, the big and the bizarre.
Okay, great. I've been getting lots of questions from our viewers. You've answered most of those. I have been getting viewers from my colleagues, people who work underneath you, and the one question they want to know, just a yes or no answer, if you would. Do you watch Sky News output 24 hours a day?
Not quite.
Okay, because they feel like you do sometimes. Thank you, John Riley, the head of Sky News, giving us an insight into what it's like in this highly pressurised role, leading this team of journalists 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year.
Ashes, thanks. Do you know, it is pretty easy to be quite cynical, but hopefully you're getting an impression that from the very top, literally from the top of the organisation down, we enjoy our work here at Sky News. We're enthusiastic about it, we're excited about it, and there are a myriad of ways in which, if you are getting slightly excited about this, you can make your way into journalism, be it radio, television, broadcast in general, or print. I mean, I had a pretty circuitous route into it. In essence, I was working as a freelancer on what's known as the contracts desk in the newsroom. It was an admin position, no editorial, no chance of appearing on television. The lady who ran that desk, Paulina, mentioned to the then head of input, a guy called Simon Cole, that, do you know what, this Neil guy likes his politics. I was called in for an interview for a permanent job on the contracts desk. The next day he phoned me up, said, you haven't got it, but sent me down to Westminster, to our Westminster bureau, on a 3-month contract as what was known as a news assistant. And around about 6 months after that, maybe 9 months at a push, I did my first shift as a political reporter. You can, in television, if you are enthusiastic enough, and indeed if you've got an organisation like Sky with people like John Riley, Peter Lowe, Adam Bolton, Jonathan Levy behind you, trying to get you enthusiastic and trying to get you in, yeah, you can end up, well, presenting Sky News Raw. All Out Politics is just coming up at in a few minutes' time. So let's see how we move from the gallery that you're watching on your screen to the one next door and take us into the programme proper.
30 seconds.
Will lift and clear. Meanwhile, across Ireland and Northern Ireland, it's cloudy. There's spells of rain there already, less cold too, and that rain is going to be moving its way eastwards through today with heavy downpours at times across Ireland, Northern Ireland, Scotland, Wales and northern and western parts of England. The
15.
Midlands, especially the East Midlands and central, southern and eastern England, will become cloudier after a
10,
bright start.
Going off there on this bumper.
With a bit of patchy rain, but the heaviest of the rain will be out towards the west, although
5,
Western Ireland becoming dry and brighter later.
3,
Winds will also
2,
strengthen across the western coast too.
And on the bumper, thanks, Naz.
Thank you, Naz.
Stand by. Here we go. And we are
off.
PCR 22.
Thank you very much,
guys. Thank you very much,
Good
everybody.
show today. Thank you.
Nice programme. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Gary, mate. Cheers.
22 to TX. Just let you know we're in Gallery 22. Please start to count to us. Thank you.
It says, "Do you happy to open
It's about 240 to the ident now.
Welcome.
Yeah, that's for me.
Then into
the key points.
Gallery to TX. Gallery 22.
Into the key points. Then tomorrow.
Just let you know we're in 22 now for the next 2 hours. Thank you.
I'll do it after we've done the intro, yeah?
I need a camera. Who's on cams next door?
Yeah, we'll do the welcome to All Out Politics, 2 hours of news.
Ads.
La la
Good,
la.
man.
You start with some breaking news this hour. We'll probably have a correspondent there in the 10 o'clock hour, I think.
Adam, you see an auto cue move there?
Yep.
Yeah, he's good.
Right, we're happy.
Should we go for it then? Go for the top?
2 minutes to ident.
2 minutes to us. Adam, do you want a quick run through?
Have we got tomorrow?
All right. This is All Out Politics coming up in the next 2 hours.
Pitch to tomorrow. Can you hear me?
Okay, go on.
Theresa May heads to Northern Ireland to try to salvage her Brexit deal. As she admits, it's a concerning time for people there.
Thanks, guys.
Beforehand, Mrs May is meeting her cabinet as Conservative MPs accuse the Brexit divide. Across the Brexit divide continues to search for an alternative to the backstop. We'll have the latest live from Downing Street.
Very done.
Growing concerns that the dispute over the Irish backstop could harm a trade deal with the United States after Brexit. We have a special report.
Next queue
Also this morning, the Business Secretary under fire of the £80 million Brexit sweetener to Nissan.
Next queue on.
And as Sky News marks 3 decades on air, we'll examine the challenges facing mainstream media in a digital world and look back at what's changed in 30 years.
What has changed?
Labour's anxious to do everything it can.
1 minute to ident.
What the party sees as first steps by the government to destroy rather than reform the NHS.
Right, there we go. Perfect stuff. Right, okay, we'll start from the top again.
See, not a bit. It hasn't changed a bit.
45 seconds.
You're back from the top, Joe. Thank you very much.
Oh, it's Greg Clark going in. Piers tomorrow, just checking you can hear me.
Yes, I can.
Hello.
Yeah.
Great, straight live with you. We'll do the key, some key points on the developments of today.
30 to ident.
Then come to you.
Okay, great.
So your live shot will be in 30 seconds. Stand by.
Oh, fine. I'll do that.
Yeah, thanks.
20 to ident.
Okay, stand by.
20.
15.
15.
Ident in 10. 9. 8. 7.
So
6.
stand by, Adam.
5
20
seconds.
to us.
4. 3. 2. 1. On the ident.
Ident is away. He's watching there, please, on cams.
1, 0.
And 10 seconds to us now. Your live shot is 20 seconds away. Hold that from me. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and Adam, cue.
This is All Out Politics, coming up in the next 2 hours.
Read on.
Theresa May is heading to Northern Ireland to try and salvage her Brexit deal. As she admits, it's a concerning time for the people there. Beforehand, the Prime Minister is meeting her cabinet as Conservative MPs across the Brexit divide continue to search for an alternative to the backstop. We'll have the latest live from Downing Street.
Mix and Q on.
Growing concerns that the dispute
Clear of your live
over the
shot,
Irish
step in, please.
backstop could harm a trade deal with the United States after Brexit. We have a special report.
Mix and Nissan.
Also this morning, the Business Secretary is under fire over the £80 million Brexit sweetener offered to Nissan.
Mix and Q on.
And as Sky News marks 3 decades on air, we'll examine the challenges facing mainstream media in a digital world and look back at what's changed in 30 years.
Full sound.
Labour's anxious to do everything
Let's
it
push
can
that slightly on
to
sound
fight
if you can.
what the party sees as first
There we
steps by
go.
the government to destroy
So,
rather than reform.
breaking
the
at the top in
NHS.
Staffordshire
Adam
breaking.
Bolton, Sky News.
And wiping. Stand by, Adam. And in 3, 2, 1, and cue. Breaking.
Well, no change there then. Good morning. Welcome to All Out Politics. 2 hours of news, debate and opinion from the heart of Westminster. And we start with some breaking news this hour. 4 children have died in a fire in Stafford. Police and emergency services were called out at overnight at 2:40 a.m. to Sycamore Lane in the Highfields area of Stafford. 2 adults
Just loosen
and
your
a
shot
5th
touch for me.
child are now being treated in hospital for
Let's go to Brexit
injuries.
and Waterquay, thank you.
Lovely, thank you.
4 children have died in that house fire. Staffordshire Fire and Rescue and West Midlands Ambulance Service attending the scene.
Reading on, Adam.
Theresa May will head to Northern Ireland
Okay, into
later
the key
today
points
as she
first.
continues to attempt to salvage her Brexit
Stand by
deal.
tomorrow.
She'll meet business leaders and politicians as she faces demands to dump the backstop from the withdrawal agreement. She's also expected to admit that it's a concerning time for many people in Northern Ireland.
Read on.
Here are today's main Brexit developments.
Q on.
Theresa May will give a speech in Northern Ireland later in which she's expected to insist that she can secure a Commons majority for a Brexit deal.
Read on.
Meanwhile, Conservative MPs from across the Brexit divide are meeting to try and find an alternative arrangements to the backstop.
And read on.
And the Business Secretary, Greg Clark,
Taking us to
is
tomorrow
facing
next.
criticism over an £80 million Brexit sweetener
You've not
deal
got the pictures?
he agreed with Nissan.
Didn't run, okay.
And
let's move on.
wiping. And
Well,
to
before
tomorrow.
Mrs May heads to Northern Ireland, she's hosting the weekly meeting of the Cabinet in Downing Street. And
is it
Sky
something with
News'
the-
political correspondent
why?
Tamara Cohen
OS1
is
next.
there.
No, it should have run.
Tomorrow, the Prime Minister very much concentrating on Northern Ireland over the next couple of days. She may even miss Prime Minister's questions tomorrow.
OS1 here.
Yes, it sounds like that may be the case because she'll be travelling to Belfast, we understand it, this afternoon and staying there until tomorrow to meet businesses and politicians, including people from the DUP who prop up her government and who support for a Brexit.
Do you want me to get Shelley
deal
to look at
is
the pictures,
crucial.
or...?
And Theresa May will be saying when she arrives this afternoon that she knows people are concerned about the ongoing deadlock. Of course, she has been tasked by Parliament
They're
with
in
finding
different
an
order.
alternative
24 and
to the
26 are in different order.
backstop, and she will be reassuring
that's
people in
why,
Northern
yeah.
Ireland that whatever happens, her commitment to keeping the border open is unwavering, and she thinks that there is...
Faisal VT next, Adam. Second one to tomorrow if you wish.
That grommet's missing.
What could it be? Well, we
Key
know that
point
Group of
grommet is
Remainers
missing in
and
the last
Brexiteers
one.
from the Conservative
Like the
Party are
graphics
working
grommet's
quite
there.
hard on that, and we'll be meeting around the corner from here later today for a
Yeah, it's all right, I
second
fixed
day
it.
of talks about what an alternative
Copy
to the
it now,
backstop
Piers,
might
I
look
fixed
Would that
like.
work now?
Just been given a bit more
Piers next door.
information about that, which is that there's about a dozen
I'll take a run through it in the
civil
break as well,
servants
so we
from
can
the
be
Northern Ireland
sure.
Department, the Brexit Department.
Shelley, for the
They're
key
looking line
points,
by line
for some
at
reason there was a bit
Brexiteers
the third
suggesting
picture
Coded in blue.
sticking.
Well, this is the gallery as All Out Politics goes live. Bottom left of your screen there is Piers Wisby, who's the responsible for All Out Politics. Job title is essentially he's an assistant editor. He tells a rather amusing story about the fact that sometimes All Out Politics doesn't begin with a political story. Twice, in fact, it has started with a football story. Arsene Wenger leaving Arsenal and Jose Mourinho being sacked by Manchester United. Now, I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but Adam Bolton isn't necessarily entirely across all of the football news, but he does like, in Piers' words, to get his expertise across. Piers tells me, during an interview with Nick Powell, our sports editor at Sky News, Adam made up a new player called Didier Pogba, a cross between Didier Drogba and Paul Pogba. Everyone in the gallery, according to Piers, agreed that he would indeed be a good player. Now let's leave Gallery 22, shall we, and take you back to the pantry or the coffee room. Here's Ashish. Now, over your shoulder, Ashish, the best team at Sky News, the Sunrise team, yes?
When we had the stills of her, so we kind of reflected on that. But I thought a good mix of stories, lots of talking points, some very good guests, and some very nice treatments and setups, really.
Yeah.
So well done.
Yeah, all good stuff.
Disco boogie. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that was the most awkward disco dancing I've ever done with the father of disco. No, he was good.
I'm definitely going to go and see him in Manchester, though. I think.
Are you going to go?
Yeah. April the 5th.
We'll all come with you. It could be a sunrise outfit.
Was he cool? He was great.
Yeah,
he was great, and even danced with SJ during the break.
Yeah.
Did he? Yeah.
Yeah.
That'll be on platforms later.
Yeah, great. That was my legacy from this morning's show. Yeah, brilliant. Well done, everyone.
Cool.
Tomorrow. Are you planning tomorrow?
Cheers.
Who's planning tomorrow?
Thank you, Neil.
Done. Thank you. Cheers. Well done. Thank you.
Well, that's the end of the Sunrise huddle. There are days in which it goes, well, oh, let's listen to Ashish.
All morning. Pretty calm show today. Not many big breaking stories.
Well, we had the story coming out of France, which was good in terms of the way that we turned it around. You know, when we first came in, first thing in the morning, we had a few pictures in from Paris, but you know, straight off the back of the 6 o'clock, we got Inzi in to talk about what had happened, and then at 7 o'clock, he was able to turn around not just a live, but a VT as well, a package as well. So you know, in terms of the approach to it, he got off the block straight away, hit the ground running, and it's a good turnaround.
Great. Does that happen quite often? What time do you start working in the morning? 4 o'clock, 5
Yeah,
o'clock?
so I mean, we have our first meeting about 4:30. So it'll be myself and Sarah Jane when I'm on Sunrise. So our first meeting is about 4:30. I tend to get in for about 4:15. But yeah, I mean, it does happen. Just depends on the day. You know, it depends on the story, where in the world it is. But you know, it can be a very, very fast turnaround. So you come in, you do your research, you do your brief, and then all of a sudden everything completely changes because there's a breaking news somewhere, whether it's in the country or somewhere in the world.
Yeah, you were on the road for a while as a correspondent here at Sky News. Do you miss being out on the road?
I miss it so much. I mean, you know, it's a different kind of job being a presenter. The pressures are very different. I mean, you've got to be across all the stories in a day. When you're on the road, you know, you're just focused on the one story that you're on, you know, and that's what you dedicate all your time to, whether, you know, you're running around, news gathering, door knocking people. But, you know, I do really miss it because there's also the camaraderie that you get being on the road with a team, you know, with your cameraman and the engineer who's in the truck, and you're driving around from place to place to place, you know, looking for the story, interviewing people. And you don't get that as much being in the studio.
But the pressure that comes with being an anchor on 24-hour news, I mean, I don't think people understand just how pressurised it is. I've been in that seat, you know, and big breaking story, and the autocue is just wiped.
Yeah.
And you're looking into a blank screen and you think, I'm terrified. How do you not let the nerves
Well, what I often say to myself, and what I say to people, is that you've got to very much be like a swan. So on the surface, you're graceful, you're in control, you know, everything's completely fine. But, you know, underneath, you know, your feet are moving around because there's so many moving parts. You know, you've got the gallery in your ears, you've got the producer, you've got the director who are talking to you, you've got information on computer screens that, you know, bouncing. We have like what are called red drops, so like breaking news lines and urgent news lines. So you're getting all these things flashing in front of you. So you've got to be really calm and really composed in order to be able to relay that information and essentially do your job, yet knowing that things are moving so fast and things can change at the drop of a hat.
Yeah, so what happens now to Kamala? I expect you're going to go straight off to the gym, are you? Or how do you decompress after coming off 4 hours of being on a high?
Yeah, decompress is the word. Get some breakfast, get a coffee. I actually split my time between London and Manchester, so when I finish a run of shifts here at Sky, I get to drive up back to Manchester. So before then, take some time off, maybe get my head down for a couple of hours, and then if I'm on Sunrise the next day, it's back to it. Get across all the stories. For me, a good programme to watch, if I've been on Sunrise the day before, is the 5 o'clock programme with Mark Austin, because in many ways that is my breakfast telly.
Yes.
So you're across all the day story, and then you try and get your head down again for about 8, 9 o'clock.
You might not be surprised to learn that Sky News Raw is trending today, just before I hand back to Neil. Show us those disco moves everyone's been talking about.
You're embarrassing me and shaming me, that's enough, that's what you're going to get.
There you go, Gamal Fangbullah, the second most handsome man at Sky News.
Well, thank you very much, Ashish. I think we all know who number one is. Actually, interestingly enough, Gamal Fangbullah, great chap. Every time he appears on television, my 3-year-old toddler goes, "Hello, Daddy," which tickles Gamal almost as much as it does me. What you're looking at right now is Studio 6, where the Sunrise team assemble between the hours of 6 and 9. It's a bit like the Marie Celeste, isn't it? Absolutely abandoned. But as you can see, Nicky Morgan currently talking to All Out Politics in the shape of Adam Bolton. Let's take us inside Gallery 22. And at times like this, of course, Adam has been doing this, well, since day one of Sky News. He was one of the starting members of staff. So he will be able to tell you just how political commentary and coverage has evolved over the years. A lot of what we do, though, is based on set pieces. You'll often see us in what's known as central lobby of the Houses of Parliament, that bit between the Lords and the House of Commons. You'll also see many people in Downing Street. And we can go to Downing Street, where, as you can see, Enda Brady is willing to take a little behind-the-scenes look, because you and me both, Enda, we have spent goodness knows how many days being rained on in Downing Street. So take us through what we can actually see there.
Well, here we are in Downing Street. I'm going to give our viewers a view that you normally wouldn't get of number 10 Downing Street. This is where the photographers leave their ladders. They've everything stored here for the big set-piece occasions when they need to get here, pick their ladder out, go and get their place in the crowd and get that all-important shot of the Prime Minister or a visiting foreign dignitary or cabinet members arriving as they are this morning. So today, Tuesday, it is cabinet meeting and all of the crews are here ready and waiting for the ministers to arrive to go and see the Prime Minister inside number 10. And here we have Tamara Cohen, our political correspondent on Sunrise. Hello, Tamara. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Tell us about your day here. Ministers arriving, what are you hoping to see and what will you ask them?
So pretty much every Tuesday we come here to cover the Cabinet meeting, which starts at 9:30, but sometimes you see Cabinet ministers coming in earlier to have other meetings with the Prime Minister. We saw David Lidington, the Deputy Prime Minister, rushing in about 8 o'clock. And so we wait to see them all come in. We don't get given an agenda or anything. The Cabinet discussion is supposed to be secret, although recently it's been quite easy to find out afterwards who said what to whom. But we tend to film them coming in, sometimes shout, ask what's going on, are you going to get a deal, do you all disagree with each other, and that is quite useful for putting together our packages later so that we have a bit of drama around their arrival. And often when we shout at them, so there's one coming, no, not one coming through here, once we shout at them, they often turn around to look at us, so we get a better...
But they never say anything, do they? Nothing substantial.
They do. I've had, I mean, it's not usual. I've had a couple of times saying, you know, we're going to get a deal, and just before the vote was supposed to happen in December, a couple of them said, I hope so, or you sometimes get a little something. My colleague John Craig had a great one with when David Davis was Brexit Secretary, and there were the talks to the DUP, and he shouted, have you brought your chequebook? And I think he nodded and said yes. And so, yeah, so there are sometimes some good ones, but it's unusual that they do say something on the way in. They certainly don't tend to come over here and talk to us beforehand.
So a lot of it is political theatre, really, but it's very useful for your report later in the day when you need the material to illustrate the story.
Yes, when we're putting together a package later in the day, it's great to have them walking in, especially if we're talking about what one of them is alleged to have said, to have a picture of them coming in, and just to have us shouting and their reaction to it. So.
What do you do in between live reports? So you pop up on Sky News for maybe 2 or 3 minutes. What do you do for the next hour in between your next live?
So generally make calls and try. Sometimes I pop across the road to Parliament to try and catch an MP having their breakfast and try and move the story on a bit. So this morning I did a live here at 8 o'clock. I went and made some calls and chatted to a couple of people and found out a bit more. That is Liz Truss, Chief Secretary to the Treasury. We're going to get an alternative to the backstop. There you go, she doesn't answer my question. I make calls, and today I found out a bit more about this group of Brexiteers and Remainers who are meeting, not here, but around the corner in Whitehall, to talk about what the Attorney General, Geoffrey Cox, see the BBC is shouting at him, and found out a little bit more about how that meeting went yesterday, so I just used a bit of that in my 9 o'clock live, and so we just try and kick the story on throughout the day.
And when you meet these politicians, are they always quite open and happy to chat about what their thinking is or where everything's going?
Sometimes you can have a conversation which is on background, so it's not for, sometimes it's for quoting and sometimes it's just for our understanding, so just to sort of give us an idea that, you know, they think that this is around, these are the sort of areas that the discussion was focusing on. So I heard this morning that the discussions yesterday about the Irish border were very much focusing on where the checks would be taking place, which is quite interesting because the Brexiteers had wanted something a lot stronger than that, I thought, a few weeks ago. So it's interesting that they were putting to civil servants, this is what we want, try and work on it. So it was just an idea about where the discussion was going. So sometimes they're more open than others, but sometimes they're... That's Brandon Lewis, Tory party chairman. You're going to find an alternative to the backstop?
Nothing from him.
Strangely enough, nothing from him either.
So what can we discern from? We've seen the Attorney General, Conservative Party chairman.
Yeah.
David Lidington was one of the first in, very loyal to the Prime Minister. Yeah. What can we discern from the pattern of arrivals this morning at, where are we now, 9:16?
Nothing tends to be discernible from the pattern of arrivals. You sometimes see... If someone has gone in at about 8 o'clock, it means they're having a pre-cabinet meeting with the Prime Minister, but they're just assembling for 9 o'clock now. And
another arrival here.
So another arrival here.
Is this a ministerial vehicle?
Car, yes.
And obviously we can't see into it because the windows in the back are all blacked out.
Sometimes they go all the way up to the door so we can barely catch them on camera. Oh, maybe
nobody.
Nobody.
Oh, they've changed their mind, perhaps.
Sometimes, usually we expect the cabinet to last an hour and a half, couple of hours, but there have been some epic ones, and you know that maybe they're all.
And how quickly then? We hear about cabinet leaks when we read the morning's newspapers the next day, or we watch Sky News an hour later. How quickly does information come out of what's happened in cabinet?
Depends what's going on, because it used to be, well, until quite recently, it was very difficult to find out what went on in cabinet. But now, because the cabinet, as we know, are deeply split on many of the issues around Brexit, it's become quite easy for the newspapers to ring up people close to cabinet ministers in the afternoons and find out what was said. So there has been a lot of concern about leaks, I believe, in Downing Street, and I think a lot of the more sensitive discussions are apparently being done in smaller committees now.
And we've another arrival here.
Another arrival. This is Penny Mordaunt, International Development Secretary. She is a leading Brexiteer in the cabinet.
So they would never come over here and chat. They just go straight in, and that's business like
Straight in and straight out, unless they reply to one of our shouts, which does occasionally happen. But no, they don't come and give us a briefing on anything that happened, because it is supposed to be secret.
Right. Tamara, we'll let you go and glean what is going on in cabinet. So there we have first-hand look inside number 10 Downing Street, almost as close as we're going to get. So we're kept inside this pen, all the photographers and the camera crews, and another cabinet arrival right now. So there we have Amber Rudd heading in to number 10 Downing Street. Big day ahead. Cabinet just about to get underway, and she acknowledges the photographers, and this is what we do when we come to number 10 Downing Street for Sky News.
Enda, thanks very much. I mean, it's quite a decent day in London. When the weather is awful, Downing Street is perhaps one of the worst places to be standing. There's absolutely no cover, as you saw, where the cameras and the correspondents stand. And some days, on big set-piece events like the budget, you actually aren't allowed out. So you have no access to toilets, you have no cover, and you can't leave. It's pretty grim. At the same time, though, you can have some fun. I remember a few years back when Arnold Schwarzenegger was governor. You saw Tamara there, rather gamely, asking everyone who went in whether they had an alternative to the backstop. Sometimes you can have a little bit of fun with the shout that you put in. So on the day that Arnold Schwarzenegger was here, in his official capacity as governor of California, we had a bit of a sweepstake to see who could come up with the best one. A sound recordist for a broadcaster whose name won't be mentioned shouted just at the point of the handshake between the Prime Minister and the Governor, "Get me to the chopper," which didn't go down very well with the boss guys at that time. Let's head back to the gallery, setting up the All Out Politics programme. They will, in the gallery themselves, be keeping half an eye on what's happening in Downing Street. They tend to dip into these pictures. So, of course, what you're watching at the top right there is a replay from the other week as we wait to go back on air with the programme.
Right. 30 seconds, Adam, 30.
As you just heard from Stuart, the director, there, just half a minute before they come back. Everything's pretty loose, everything's pretty relaxed. You know, Adam has been broadcasting for a good few years now. It's not as if he's going to be flustered by anything particularly.
Adam, listen, we'll just do latest cabinet arrivals very quickly.
But what you tend to find in the last 10 seconds, 15 seconds or so, as Piers is doing, just a little bit of information about where we're going to go next and what is going to be happening. And for some reason, Enda is having a selfie with Tamara.
Liddington and McDonald, isn't it?
Oh, stand by transfer, thanks for the
Yeah.
count. Stand by F Foxtrot, F roll.
So are you going to stay here or leave?
F
So
is to line, Adam Q.
What do you do next?
I'm doing one more time.
Okay.
Just log that for me.
Mrs May is going to Northern Ireland after this meeting, and we believe she's going to be at night, which raises the question whether she'll be back by noon tomorrow.
Live shot. Oh, that should be.
Or whether the stand-ins, David
Sky Today
Liddington,
pictures.
the Chancellor of
It's
Duchy
not
of
a live shot.
Manchester, and the Shadow Foreign Secretary Emily Thornberry will be taking PMQs. Well, that's for tomorrow. For today, we'll have live reports on what's going on in the cabinet as they develop.
You next.
Penny Morden there.
Back
Well,
in
time to
vision.
review
And
look at the
cuts.
opinion
Change
pages
straps.
of today's newspapers. And in The Guardian,
On the
Tony
graphic.
Blair, remember him, former Prime Minister, says it's time to end the argument over leaving the European Union, and what he calls a blind Brexit won't give the nation closure.
Service one now.
He says Stephen Pollard, writing in the Daily Express, claims the latest group of breakaway pro-Remain Labour MPs have a tough task, but their main job is to stop Jeremy Corbyn becoming Prime Minister.
And the Times.
The Alternative Arrangement Working Group of Conservative MPs is very alternative indeed in Morland's cartoon in The Times.
And the Telegraph.
In the Daily Telegraph, William Hague says the crisis in Venezuela
What we're watching
has
at the moment
shown
is
the
Sky
Labour
News
leadership
Views,
to be
the All Out
different
Politics
from
Views, the
suffering
Sky Views
and
section.
lacking
It's the
a
cartoons,
moral
the
compass.
satirical pieces, the
For the
opinion
fuel,
pieces.
many of the Venezuelan
And what you're seeing in essence is Stuart, the director, in the middle there, just triggering the images on, but also cueing Adam as well, so he knows exactly where he is in the script.
Rachel Sylvester in the Times urges the government to
And then
cut
you'll
the
see a
number of pupils
nice
who are
wipe,
permanently excluded
and he'll bring in the
schools.
Just give us the single there on 24.
Can't quite see who we've got in the
And in the Daily
studio
Mail,
today.
Roger
They're
Mosley,
tucked behind one of the monitors that you can see in the bottom right there. That black rectangle over which you can just see the guest. That's one of the off-air monitors. So Adam can basically see what is going out on the channel.
Well, joining me to go through those are the political editor
And
of the Sun
one
newspaper,
steady there,
Ian
cut.
Dunn, and the writer and researcher Maya Goodfellow. Welcome to you indeed.
24 cut.
Venezuela and Jeremy Corbyn,
22
where
cut.
Jeremy Corbyn and John McDonnell have refused to criticise
24 cut.
Maduro. William Hague really sticks the boot in. They are guilty on 3 counts of supporting
22
economic
cut.
insanity,
That one there, yeah.
indifference to intense human suffering, and a refusal to accept
On the
any
graphic
measures
there,
to
Adam.
alleviate it, all because of their adherence to an ideology and hatred for any
More
leader of the
cabinet
Western
arrivals
world.
coming in.
What do you say, Maya?
21 single rights, please. 21 cut. Super there.
Well, let's going to show you around the Millbank newsroom. The chap that you're looking at the moment is Dan Williams. He's the boss, running a team of, I think it's around about 30 people, 30 journalists based in Westminster. Again, as you often find, a huge CV on this chap here. He used to be a Washington news editor, the African news editor. Also was our head of international news. When asked to provide an interesting fact about himself, he says he's won 2 BAFTAs and an Emmy for various international coverage. I can't see those on the desk, but no, he heads up in terms of the architecture of where he is, the layout, he is sitting directly opposite our political editor, currently Faisal Islam. But of course, if you've been keeping across social media yesterday, you will know that our new political editor, soon-to-be political editor, is Beth Rigby, currently our deputy. And there you can see at the back, of course, Dan Williams. Then Lucy Plint, who's the senior news editor in terms of politics. She does a little bit more of the kind of the day-to-day, the on-the-job stuff. And then you've got Claire Parry at the bottom left of your screen, the political news editor. Her job description, well, she essentially needs to know what the stories are, where the correspondents are, where the crews are, where the stories are, and where the stories are that we don't yet know about. Making sure that we break them first ahead of the opposition. And that is still part of the raison d'etre of Sky, is to find out what's going on, make sure it's right, and then get it on screen, whatever form that screen might take, just as soon as possible. You cannot do that as a political journalist without the assistance of your head of politics and your political news editing team.
Lines that we think we need, then John Craig can do them late.
It turns out Chavez and certainly Maduro are pretty much stinkers these days, and they have clearly... Is it fair to criticise socialism because of what they've done? So they represent a socialist regime. Their socialist regime clearly is going down the Swanee and doing massive damage to the Venezuelan people. I don't think it's necessarily about socialism. It's how one government has handled its socialism.
What you'll also find is a lot of people not necessarily directly attached to politics also having their desks. Just in that very back of the shot there, the Sky News Tonight team sits over there. Dermot Murnaghan will be in the office a little bit later today. You also get a number of our specialist correspondents choosing to make Westminster their home. Alistair Bunkle, for example, always prefers to be in SW1 rather than out here in West London. Don't know why. Mark Kleinman, city editor, also has a desk there. Ed Conway, our economics editor, tends to be found down there. Martin Brunt, our crime correspondent, possessor of the best Mac in journalism. Also, you're far more likely to find him in the office here at 4 Millbank rather than back at base here at the Sky News Centre.
That's coming in a few months' time. What Labour Party doing is refusing to take sides. Interesting, the holding line for an entire shadow cabinet. We can't intervene. It's not good for us to pick who's going to be the next leader of Venezuela. They fall back in this age-old Corbyn argument. There has to be dialogue.
And here is our floor manager in the Westminster office. Look, the floor manager, I think, is one of those roles that unless you're working in television, you probably don't know a huge amount about. But in essence, they stop telly looking rubbish. They get guests in at the right time. They make sure that chairs are moved away at the right time. They make sure that the correspondent and presenter is lubricated with as much coffee as they can get inside them, depending on the show that they're working on.
What about the point that Stephen Pollard, the editor of Jewish Chronicle, makes?
But it's also an extra pair of hands to make sure that if something goes wrong mid-show, the presenter, currently, of course, Adam Bolton, doesn't need to worry about, for example, rebooting their computer or mopping up the coffee that they've knocked over onto the floor.
And he says, well, whatever happens, their duties.
The gallery staff for All Out Politics very happy today.
That's fine. Thank you.
21 cut. This is the lull, yeah. This is the lull. 22 cut. Go for his single.
1 minute left.
Is there going to be a breakaway party?
21 cut.
Is there going to be a leadership challenge on Theresa May? And last weekend it just happened to be, is there going to be a breakaway party? Not very much has changed since the last time
cut.
we all read these stories, Adam. Apart from maybe one thing, and this is, in my view, the only thing that could actually create a breakaway party, and that is the forcible removal of Labour MPs from their party. These elections. It's also beginning to happen on the Tory side as well, with Nick Bowles in big trouble in Grantham. So the likes of
One thing to remember is that it does look pretty relaxed in the gallery at the moment. And even on big news stories, you will not necessarily hear people shouting and swearing at each other too much. This is a pretty structured bit of the programme. There's not much that tends to develop too much around about this time, although I think I remember from the morning meeting, we'll be returning to another meeting in just a couple of minutes. You can see at the bottom right there that there are some statistics coming out at 9:30. What will happen is the team will take a look at them rather than putting them straight to air. So that, you might see a little bit of breaking news during All Out Politics today. But it's when you have, for example, I'll give you one of the stories on which I worked, the London Bridge attack. Now, I was literally sitting in the studio at 10:25 one evening, getting ready for the press, for the paper review, and someone suggested that we might want to take a look at Twitter because something had happened on London Bridge. You then start rolling on that story, and at times like that, things become a little bit more freewheeling. Programmes like this, a little bit more structured, but you just never know.
Welcome to the Sky Video Conferencing Service.
Well, welcome to the Sky Video Conferencing Service. That's how we communicate, as you noticed in the 7:30 meeting. That's how you communicate with Westminster again. This is another meeting, another 9:30. Let's see how things have progressed. Let's see what has changed in terms of the news agenda. A couple of stories that weren't mentioned at 7:30, certainly being mentioned on screen now. So let's listen in.
Right, Tuesday morning. What are we going to win at? Should we talk through things? Is Nick here?
I'm here.
Yes, you are. Do you want to start off with Theresa May in Northern Ireland?
And that is Christina Nicolotti Squires.
Can you talk us through what you can on that?
Yeah, so she is off Northern Ireland today, where she'll make a speech later this afternoon. She is expected to promise to find a deal with the EU that can both command the majority of the Commons, but also get broad support across the community in Northern Ireland. So Faisal is there, and he will work on a BT for this evening, and he'll be there late, so he can do a live into the 10 as well. Back here, a few bits going on. There's Cabinet this morning, so we'll get arrivals and departures as normal, and we're also expecting the Alternative Arrangements Working Group, so that's the Malthouse Compromise Group, to have more meetings today. So we'll again try and get them on the way in and out and see if anything comes out of that, which could either be wrapped into Faisal's VT for later, or we can work out of it if it merits more.
Okay.
And in terms of access to people over there, Lucy, is there anyone kind of set up? Is he getting to business people or anyone like that?
Not set up at the moment, but George is with him and is working on some of that. And we've got a bid in for an interview with Arlene Foster as well.
You still do your award? Because it feels like you want him to kind of, it's almost taking a temperature in Northern Ireland of...
That's what she's gone to do, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And he needs to do the same kind of thing.
Okay. And what about the...
I think there won't be, bearing in mind sort of Faisal's live commitments around the speech, obviously he'll be in for that, it's a Q&A, and we'll want him to do lives. I'm not sure how much time there is going to be for him to do huge amounts of gathering.
What time will Stephen get there?
Stephen Murphy will be there latest midday.
Yeah. So Stephen could take over the live.
So potentially early afternoon, he could do a little bit of gathering.
That'd be good. Okay, and what about the...
I think we prefer, to be honest, I think probably better for Faisal to do the lives and see if Stephen can maybe help with the gathering. But shall we chat?
Yeah, let's talk about that afterwards.
More about that later.
Okay.
I mean, there will be times, I suspect, where Faisal can't be live, or do you not envisage that being the case?
I mean,
yeah, no, of course there will. There will be times, you know, when he's got to be in for the speech and immediately afterwards, and obviously he won't be able to come up live.
Yeah.
I mean, the idea of Stephen going up from Dublin was to free Faisal to be able to shoot stuff. Anyway, we'll sort it out.
Yeah, but you'll want Faisal around the speech, getting a question to Theresa May off the back of the speech and then live off. So there's a big chunk there where you'll...
Of course. I'm talking about like 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock onwards.
And shall we just mention the Blevins thing, because I think tonight we'll sit alongside it.
Yeah. So Simon Coveney is in New York. We understand lobbying the sort of the Irish political lobby over there, who are concerned about backstop and reneging on the backstop, that kind of thing. So Blevins has got a sit-down interview with him. I don't know what time yet. I've not spoken to them yet, but it's probably a case of it working as a sort of a packaged slab, if you like, that runs off the back of the Northern Ireland piece from Faisal.
Andy, sorry to interrupt, but as I said in the 7:30, Coveney's now getting there very much later.
But Coveney was in Brussels yesterday for the Arab League meeting.
Yeah.
So I don't know what Coveney's movements are exactly.
Well,
Do you
it's
think
only
there's a risk of
Blevins.
it not
I spoke
making-
to Blevins last night, late on. He said Coveney doesn't get there in time for him, David, to have any access to him, and the access will be the next day. So it's obviously you'll talk to David. But
Yeah, when he
he has also shot a sequence in the sort of Irish bar in New York or something last night with expats talking about talking about the backstop and Brexit and the border and their views. So that would work into something either for tonight or tomorrow, whenever it is.
Yeah. Let's see what the timings are on that then. Okay, anything else politics-wise?
No, I think that's it.
Okay, where do you want to go to next, Nick?
Social media?
Yes.
Yes, so it's quite a development on that story today. On a number of levels, we'll get Jason Farrell to take a look at the side of the plan to effectively ask all social media companies to sign up to a code of conduct today, and that will be launched effectively by Margot James this afternoon at 2:30 on Internet Safety Day. I think it is today as well.
Yeah.
You speaking to Jason Farrell today about what his movements are, and he can be at both, or he's at a different event this morning, isn't he?
Yeah, he is at a different event this morning, but that does go into the piece that will be this evening.
Has he got a case study?
The event this morning is a student event. I've not got a case study in the bag, but obviously...
That's the key thing, isn't it?
So if he gets a case study, it may be that he cannot go to the Margot James thing this afternoon.
I mean, we can do that anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, as long as we get a question to him.
Yeah.
Or even just this week.
Okay.
Just to check, has Jason bid for Margot, or do we need to?
I think, Lucy, did you?
We've got a bid in for her already.
Okay, great.
Okay, great. Okay.
Right. I guess the question is just, does it go far enough? Will it achieve what they want it
There have
to
been so many of these summits and meetings.
Yeah.
Nothing seems to have actually changed. Okay.
Great.
Still a hot topic, though, isn't it?
Yeah, and it will be all week as well.
And then the other great talking point today is the Liam Neeson interview.
Yes, so...
Yes.
Yeah, Liam Neeson has rather spoken out in a way that has caused quite a lot of controversy this morning, or rather he did it last night, but it's obviously making waves. We will be talking today to John Barnes, who's going to talk to us about, oddly, we think his line will be good on Liam Neeson. You might think, what? But what he's saying is well done to him for kind of being honest and kind of giving clarity on his thoughts back then when it happened. Most people wouldn't be honest about it and wouldn't explain how they feel.
Unexpected quarter.
So whether it's as strong as that, we'll see. But the plan is to talk to John Barnes later on. The story, if no one's aware, is of course that he said that when he found out that a close friend had been raped, that he armed himself with a kosh and was looking to try and kill a black man, as he says, which is obviously in all quarters really had an impact. Woodsy, you're putting other feelers out as well, potentially?
Yeah, I mean, I spoke to Barnesy, and he's very articulate and very passionate about why he wants to sort of come on and talk about this. But I thought, 24 hours ago, this will be a 24-hour story by the time we're on air tonight, so we've got to try and move it on.
Yeah.
And I think that the feeling is that we had this kind of the sharp intake of breath from everybody last night, and then people condemning it, and now we need to sort of move on from there. So I'm trying to get a publicity kind of angle as to whether it does spell difficulties for his career, and how can these incredibly bland junket interviews, which seldom make news, how can they explode like something like this? I mean, we kind of want our celebrities to bare their souls a bit, don't we? We don't want them to come on and talk about how they like gardening. We want them to say controversial things. Now, I don't think he said this to simply just sell his movie, because if he had that plan, he would have said it in all the interviews that he'd done about it. But it's been obviously preying on his mind, and he suddenly just went bleh.
But he also
with
didn't do
it.
it by mistake. I mean, instead, you
No,
know,
but-
saying this to a journalist.
Yeah, but I'm not sure whether he went into it in a pre-planned thing or whether it was just a question which triggered it. I mean, that's a good question to put to Clement.
I mean, to your question about how it's affected him, I mean, Paul and I were kicking around, do we Sky Data poll it?
Yeah, could.
You know, was he right to speak out? Does it damage your image of him?
Yeah.
Does it make you less likely to see a film?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, just in the voice of the publicity angle, I think Dominic Mohan, former editor of The Sun, who's now got a PR company and does crisis management, is quite keen to talk about it as well. So I think we'll probably get him in.
And we've got a bit in for the film critic who did the interview as well. They're in New York, so.
I mean, there are a lot of people calling for a boycott of this film now, aren't there?
Yes.
I mean, you know...
Dave, do we have the
easy thing
capacity
to
to Sky Data poll it if we wanted to?
Harry's in today. Let me speak to Harry. I mean, almost certainly we can. It's just...
Give me the question right.
We happen to be doing tons of them at the minute, and we start this sample husbandry issues.
Okay. I think if it's anonymous like that, you wouldn't be able to do this in a vox pop, but you could do it in Sky Data. I mean, one of the things that John Barnes is talking about is encouraging people to confront their inner feelings. Might not be inner feelings now, but have you ever felt racist in the past? Have you ever had an angry racist thought in the past? You know, I don't know how honest people would be on the Sky Data thing.
Yeah.
They certainly wouldn't do it in a vox pop, would they?
No, I think it's more about him himself.
Okay.
And then foreign-wise, later tonight we're expecting a Venezuela piece.
Oh, Venezuela, okay.
Stuart has interviewed a doctor and then is hoping to get access to a hospital later today where he can explore the avenues, of people who have been caught up in the protest and injured by authorities, that kind of thing, but also shortage of available medicines, equipment, that kind of thing, which will tie into the aid line of the story as well, and shortages of medical equipment and food and that kind of thing. So again, I haven't spoken to them yet, but that's the sort of that's the aim for a 10 o'clock piece.
And then you mentioned State of the Union.
And then obviously State of the Union late tonight into tomorrow.
Yeah, so Nick and I were just discussing about whether the Raj Shah interview, which Cordelia is doing, if we can sort of take elements of that, like an insight into the White House, and sort of turn that into a preview piece, basically, about what's...
Yeah, because that's what it'll be in effect, isn't it?
Yeah.
We're doing a debate at 6:30 with a couple of voices out of the US on that. So we've got a Democratic strategist going into...
He's going into the Bureau, yeah.
Into the Bureau. And then we're doing a Republican Party voice as well. So there might be some...
Yeah, that could be a good interview, couldn't it?
Can we...
On Venezuela, I mean, if you wanted to try Stuart Ramsey live, so you should talk to him about that, because tomorrow is really important with the aid arriving at the border, and Amanda Walker will be there, but she won't be there for 10 tonight. But Ramsey can talk about it if they want to do it.
Yeah, we haven't done it yet.
Yeah, it's quite nice to do.
So just off the back of the State of the Union preview, can we obviously trail that we'll be carrying it live overnight? Obviously.
Yeah.
What else?
Well, there's an air pollution story, but again, embargoed for 10.
Yes, just after it's Dan Whitehead is got many of the elements already. This is a UNICEF report.
Time is agreed.
Yes, we've done her, and a new inquest was ordered, I seem to remember.
So you've just got to be a bit careful sometimes with these stories. I mean, there are some ridiculous embargoes that we're often told, well, as broadcasters, you're not allowed to do this till midnight, and then you see it in the first edition of the papers, which generally are starting to arrive in our inbox. We get the front pages sent to us via email most of the time these days, before we get the hard copy, as it were. And then we have to play a little bit of catch-up. So there are sillinesses around the embargo system, but in general, it works pretty well as a system of making sure that people don't get a head start on others.
and the next day there was a car bomb when there was some gunfire and all this sort of thing. And then it's then the sort of the rumour mill that circulates around, you know, who did what was one part or the other, and then there's rumours about the rumours, and then the Russian government now talking about bringing in legislation to sort of to counter fake news reports and basically prosecute people. Which, given that that's the sort of suppose allegedly
there's an irony,
origin of an awful lot, is
yeah.
But it's like I say, it's a good watch, and it's in already, and she'll file for online, whatever.
And I think, I mean, not being in planning yesterday, but in terms of the Sky News Raw story.
Yeah, we should be doing a piece.
Well, should we? That's what I was going to ask you.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
but I thought the plan always was to, so forgive me, I wasn't in planning yesterday, but I think we should do a piece, basically capturing the best of the day, I suppose, and the best moments, and there's interviews with John why we're doing it, and why we're doing it, and what the point of it is, and you know, it'd be nice to mix a few other people in there. So I think we should, yeah. Who can do it? Is Lucy in today? Right. Okay.
I'll have a look and see who's on late.
Okay, because I'd like to put that together.
Yeah, it needs to be the right kind of person, really, isn't it?
I mean, Ashish is in now.
But he's tied up doing it.
But
until, I don't know what time, because Katie takes over, doesn't she?
Yeah, exactly. So
Could it be finished at 5 anyway?
Yeah, it could be done 5 o'clock.
So I think those who are involved in it will have a better handle on.
Okay.
Cool. So I presume it's Ashish, you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, Ashish or Kate Spencer.
I mean, it stops at it does stop at 5, doesn't it?
Yes.
So actually, Katie could do it.
Katie do it well, actually.
Yep.
Okay. It's quite nice to get a mix of people in the order as well.
So
Spencer for 1900.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, anything else? Go on.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, yes, Hull.
So, yeah, we're in Hull with Sally Lockwood. There are things she's checking out.
Yep.
And a location she's going to. I think it's play it by ear scenario initially.
Yeah. Presume the police are not putting the parents up, are they? That's what the message...
Yeah, I think that was the point of yesterday, was that they don't want to be in front of a bunch of journos, understandably, at this stage. So we'll see where it goes.
Are we trying friends of hers and stuff like that?
Yeah.
We tried the Hull University group of students yesterday. There's been a real kind of groundswell from them, but they currently don't want to talk to us. But we'll check in with the university press office again today.
Okay.
And have we spoken to... There's neighbour mentioned in the papers hearing a scream, isn't there?
One of the things we're checking out.
Great.
Okay.
And the only thing that has just, recently happened, the deaths, it appears, of 4 children in a fire.
Oh, yeah.
Stafford.
Really sad. Who's on the way there?
So we've got Becky Johnson, should be there more or less now. So they'll try and find out what's gone on, talk to people around to see what happened, when it happened, whether there's anybody in custody or not, whether there was anything slightly untoward about this, other than being a tragic.
I think the fire in Paris is probably marked by the end of the day, isn't it?
There has to be a thing behind it, you know, for it to
Just
be
back
involved.
on the Staffordshire story, depending on what comes out, obviously, you know, I'd be keen for a piece for 5 if we get voices and there's the story there.
That was my thinking, is that in all likelihood, even if it's not something that will sort of push through the evening, certainly I think
with 4 children dead, it's...
Lives and pictures, and we're probably going to drop the helicopter up.
Okay. So, anything else before we recap?
We quite like for daytime the carers story. I don't think we've.
I was going to mention that. It's a really good.
Huge number of 600 people a day that would leave their jobs to help care for a relative. So it's really good for us for guests. I think probably is the best way to handle it.
I suppose if you're doing the social media story and you get a strong case study on that, they're not obviously not similar, but they're similar types of stories, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, there is a lot, especially for 10. There's a lot around tonight.
Yeah.
If we get an incredibly good case study, then maybe you could take a view.
That figure is almost unbelievable, isn't it? I mean, so every day, 600 people leave their employment in order to care for somebody.
I wonder whether that's
is that really true?
But that might be not permanently.
It might be temporarily.
It might also be changing the way that you work.
Which is why they're pushing for this sort of government as a statutory care leave because you do need a bit of time just to sort stuff out. It's a good story.
Okay. Right, so we've got Faisal on Theresa May in Ireland. Let's see what comes of Blevins, but I think that might be more for tomorrow. Jason Farrell on social media. Ian's going to be doing the Liam Neeson discussion.
Yeah.
Katie Spencer's not in the right order, but Katie Spencer's doing the anniversary project piece.
Yeah.
Diane Magnay on fake news from Russia. Ramsey doing a piece out of Venezuela with doctors, and is it Cordelia doing State of the Nation? Preview?
It is, yes. Yeah. We've only got Cordy and Hannah active today. The other two are travelling.
That's it, isn't it? I think I've got everything. Yeah. Okay.
Is
Hannah
in? And I was going to say Guzman, which is the Guzman trial. We just need to be aware if that does come back, then Hannah will do that.
She can do that. Fine.
Is she, I mean, the journo who interviewed Neeson is in New York.
Yeah.
Is Hannah available? If we can get to them,
yeah.
Could Hannah go and interview them for us?
Yeah.
Or be better than doing down the line.
Sure. Hannah plus crew and do it. I mean,
And obviously Dan Whitehead on pollution.
Yeah.
Well, there is a lot there, isn't there?
Can I just mention the new HMV buyer is on Ian King today, from the Canadian company Sunrise Records.
Okay, great. We'll have a listen and use
He was
a bit
great
of
on the
that
radio
this
this
afternoon.
morning, actually.
Yeah. I mean, he's an interesting guy.
He's quite good.
He's only 34 years old.
He's really into vinyl.
Yeah.
Which is one of the reasons why I bought it. Seriously, they're going to bring back in the stores in Canada.
Okay.
They brought one. They put vinyl in the stores. So that could be quite good, actually.
Yeah.
Let's try and run some across the afternoon.
And Ian King's talking to David Harding.
Yes, Ian knows him, so he will ask him. That's the guy that made the big donation to Cambridge.
Okay. Cool. All right. Anything else? Anyone? Any thoughts or ideas? Thank you very much.
And that is the end of the 9:30 meeting. A couple of things to think to say. I mean, first of all, do keep your comments and questions coming in using the hashtag SkyNewsRaw. You can see them on the right of your screen there. I mean, one person who's been getting in touch today is Hayley Barlow, who happens to be head of communications for Channel 4 News, who's telling us that our channel is weirdly compelling viewing, yet hugely helpful ahead of our own 9:30 editorial meeting. So, Channel 4, always happy to follow in Sky News' footsteps. But the other thing to say about that meeting is pretty clearly news is not static. Now that was evidenced in a couple of ways then. I don't know if you detect, but there was a touch of to and fro, a little bit of back and forth when it came to what our political editor Faisal Islam was going to be doing today. In essence, if you can't get the pictures, if you can't get a voice on it, you can't have someone reporting on it, it is very difficult to tell the news. Of course, it is a bit different from the old days of print where someone simply needed to turn up with 20p for a phone call, a pad and a pen. Making television news, there are obviously more resources. So as the editorial priorities of the day change and people get moved to different stories, different parts of the country, onto different jobs with different start and finish times as well, sometimes that means that our editorial priorities have to change along with them. But the other thing I mean about the news not being static is that it evolves, that it changes. Now, in that meeting there, you'll have noticed a chap with a little hint of a Northern Irish accent. That's Ian Woods, one of the most senior and certainly one of the most respected journalists that we've got working here. He was talking about the story about who's the Irish chap, the actor Liam Neeson, who's made his way into the papers today because of what some people are suggesting are unguarding comments, other people suggesting a rather useful confession. His point in the meeting was, look, this story, by the time this goes on air tonight, it's going to be 24 hours old, so we need to look at how we report it. We can't simply report what happened, because it's already happened, but how we kind of shift focus, we explore other avenues, we develop a story from yesterday into another piece of news by the time we get to the evening transmission.
Just need to talk to Millbank and just say, I mean, they'll be aware, don't worry.
A couple of you have asked how long the delay is that we have going on here. Yeah, and a couple of others have suggested that perhaps there isn't the gallows humour that you might often get in a newsroom. Things have been, of course, toned down today for Ofcom reasons, but you are getting as close to what it really is like in the newsroom on a daily basis. And I apologise in advance, because there will at some point be a slip-up in terms of the language. But Craig asked this question on Twitter. You know, what's the gallery like when there are technical difficulties? Well, the hope is that you guys never notice it. I mean, I suppose, given that there are any number of technical problems that can happen and any number of solutions that can be found, the best thing to say is, well, it's business as usual. You just have to make sure that things on air look as smooth as possible, and that the people who can sort the technical difficulties get the opportunity to do so. Things go wrong in television news a lot of the time, and that doesn't matter whether you're at Sky, BBC, ITN, or our friends at Channel 4 News. Clearly, you just need to be a little bit fleet-footed. You need to be able to react to it, and that as much is reflected in how we deal with things editorially as how we deal with things practically. Craig was also asking how many people work in the Westminster studios. Frankly, Craig, I'm going to have to check that one out and get back to you, because it is a bit of a movable feast. But in terms of Westminster staff, I think there are around about 30. But people like, as I mentioned, Mark Kleinman, Ed Conway, Alistair Bunklemove, in and out.
Be facing inwards.
And that's the news desk in the Westminster office again. Don't want this to get all kind of Alan Partridge, Roger Moore is at the Chiswick roundabout, but I am told that Harriet Harman is in makeup, so we may well be seeing her moving into the studio in a couple of minutes' time. She'll come through that door there, this door here, that you can see, and be rushed straight into the studio. I mean, so much of Westminster, and you may be wondering why we're not seeing many of the reporters around. Well, as my old boss at Westminster, Jonathan Levy, used to say to me, why are you sitting here? Why aren't you out finding your story? I mean, if you want to find out what's going on in Westminster, yep, your mobile phone, your access to your social media is as important as anything else. But you also need to be over in Palace of Westminster, finding people, asking the questions and building relationships.
Low cloud will bring fog to hills, but the west of Ireland will have some late brightness. The rain.
Guess what? We're going to another meeting in the not-too-distant future. I know it seems like there's an awful lot of time spent discussing things, but you need to. You need to make sure what's going on. And second, we'll be bringing in Katie Spencer. But that meeting at 9:30 then gets translated into telly by the evening team. They'll be discussing who's going to be looking after, what we call VTs, edited reports, in essence, back at base. They'll be discussing who will be working on the nibs, the news and briefs, those little news items that bring up. In fact, let's bring in Katie Spencer. Hi, Katie. Who are you with? Again, we're in the pantry again. I've never called it the pantry before, but I've only just noticed that there's a sign up over in the corner describing it as such. But what are you there for?
I sense you're being a little bit sarcastic about the number of meetings we have, Neil, but we are at another meeting. This is the one where the evening team will basically set out their stories for the day. Nick Phipps is the output editor for tonight. He'll be deciding which producers basically are going to be working on which stories and assigning them to certain stories, which they'll follow up throughout the day. I'll step out the way and let you have a little listen, actually, to them.
But who would that voice be?
So, do you think Apple would say that? Someone what about like a Bonnie Greer? Or a,
Yeah, Bonnie Greer's not a bad call, actually, for the American angle as well.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Yeah. So, I mean,
and I think graphics-wise, there's a Sky Data poll, but there's nothing beyond that, I don't think.
yeah, I mean, we have a template for that if you want to do that. But, he could have just been angry with anyone who was involved.
Yeah.
Like
when you're famous.
Yeah, because you jump on the race thing, but it could be that he was angry that his friend was attacked rather than it being about race.
But that's why I think I think you're all right that we need a voice who will kind of articulate the race. It's not acceptable, but actually the piece fundamentally is about Liam Neeson and what impact these comments will have on him and whether people want to see his films. Yeah. Okay, so thanks to Lee. Right, so what else have we got to talk about? So, Sky News Raw.
Yes.
So, you're going to... I think you obviously just need to talk to Chris Howard and get across the channel recording.
Yeah.
And it's really a kind of...
Best of the day.
A best of the day, isn't
Great.
it? It's as simple as that, really.
Yeah. We've got John's interview.
Yes, I saw that was running maybe just before 9 o'clock. So I think, how can I put it, that's probably the one interview that should definitely feature in there, and then we'll see
then
what...
follow Delete around.
Yes, exactly. and then we can have a kind of crazy loop where this bit gets featured and it's the meeting talking about the package, talking about the package. Like mirrors facing each other. Exactly. Okay. So that would be a Katie Spencer piece, we think, for 7 o'clock. All right, so Aoife, you are looking at a couple of things. So on the social media story, Jason Farrell is on that and Jordan is already across it, so I think just go and check in with her. I guess from what they're saying in the meeting, we're trying to get to the Margot James event, which is 2:30. We need a case study, really, and I don't know, have any of you worked on the social media story over the last few weeks? Have we ever spoken to any of the kind of famous cases involved?
I think we put some bits in, but we haven't gone anywhere.
So that will be the...
Yeah.
Like a refresher. It feels like an essential bit, really, doesn't it, to kind of get a parent who can speak to us today.
I think, was it Molly? Is it her father's talking, I thought? Or he has spoken, so he might do something.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we had a bit in there, but I think he was taking a break from media.
It may be that because of today that he decides to come out and re-engage, but and I suppose the central question is the kind of so the government's saying there's a new white paper that comes out next month, and as part of that there will be a provision for kind of a compulsory code of conduct that these companies have to sign up to. But it's have we seen this before? What have the companies done previously in terms of signing up to it, or has it changed their behaviour, and whether that's a kind of industry commentator, or I don't know, is there a kind of British startup that is in the same field? It's not really Martha Lane Fox, but is there a kind of a British voice in the internet world who can kind of articulate, look, I know to get these guys to agree to change, you actually have to do X, hit them in the pocket, regulate them, or whatever it is.
Touching on mental health of young people and social media, is that what you want? Is that what you want the case study to be?
I suppose because it's not a news story today, it feels like the thing today is about the government moving to act, and so actually, I feel like it's not so much about the mental health side of the story. We know that that's why people are concerned, and that these Instagram and so on could kind of have this impact. But I don't feel like we need to get into talking to psychotherapists or whatever.
No, I just heard on the radio the other day there was a head teacher of a school in North London who made the case of, we actually don't know how bad it is for kids, and we don't get that living in our generation, how bad it is right now to be a 14, 15, 16-year-old. And she made the case of, we have all these rules on how old you have to be to drink, how old you have to be to drive, how old you have to be to get married. So we do have all these kind of social rules on protecting children, and yet this is kind of the Wild West, and we're not protecting them. So
it's whether that's that's a great guest, isn't it? I'm just not sure whether that's... Do you want to go and have a chat to Jordan and see how it's... I suppose more it feels to me like today, you've obviously got to have Margot James in the piece, you've got to have someone from the industry or who knows the industry reacting to it, and you've got to have a case study. And I just wonder whether that's it probably for the voices, but anyway, let's see. Okay.
Is there a graphic that illustrates the proposal? Is it that defined?
Or what they've done previously.
Yeah.
I think that's it, isn't it? Actually, it's kind of making it up that in 2014 they brought in X, in 2016 they did Y, and yeah.
And what kind of things could it be? Just
Well, they're saying a compulsory code of conduct as part of the white paper that's being proposed next month. But what
beyond that?
Exactly. What's the deal? What would that whole code of conduct hold them to? I don't know. And it does feel slightly as if mean, Margot James today is giving the speech, but the kind of suicide prevention minister was on the radio this morning. You know, it's a slight, you know, throw it at the wall kind of approach, you know, from the government, given that they know that there's so much publicity around this at the moment. So we need to be critical.
To illustrate if there's not something a little bit more explicit to go on.
But I still think Gilbert's point about doing some form of what actions have been previously taken would be a way of kind of fleshing that bit out. Okay. And then on air pollution, I think if we just go and check in with Dan about what basically what help means. I don't think he's expecting to have a package producer, so it's really, again, is there a graphic there which looks at, you know, it's various medical bodies who come together to talk about the risk. So if they're highlighting particular figures about the number of children who are getting ill or whatever, then I think we just need to illustrate that. Have you done any previous nice designs on air pollution? I don't know, it strikes me as there's a very nice bespoke graphic idea there.
I mean, there could be, but it depends. It's easier, I think, to talk about the causes and illustrate that than it would be to talk about the
actual
contaminants. Yeah, if you're talking about, you know, roadside, or, you know, what are the particulates that are affecting them, and who produce them and where they're coming from. I think you can start to see that and visualise it. Whereas I think if it's just into kind of numbers of children affected or whatever, then I think it gets harder to. So if it was a, you know, a little environment and it had a factory in it and a car and a log fire and a whatever, you know,
is this for the country or is this for?
I think it's nationwide. Yeah.
So I know that London's doing a pollution survey, aren't they?
There's a website that you can check pollution in your local area in London. There are monitors everywhere.
So you were mentioning about the schools.
There's schools also that are doing their own air testing within their school grounds, and there's one school in my neighbourhood that has paid to install air purifiers in their classrooms and is monitoring and, you know, brought down the levels of what the kids are breathing. It's quite expensive.
Well, let's leave the evening team's planning meeting. Nick Phipps, actually, the chap who was in control there with the long luscious hair, actually was very instrumental in getting me on screen as a presenter. The first presenting gig I ever did was during the Scottish independence referendum on the night itself. But just to show you, this is Gallery 21, which is kind of off air at the moment, but as you'll notice, there are still people in there. Engineering work taking place often happens. You need to update, you need to maintain, and sometimes you need to take a big hammer to it just to make it work. But clearly in the times when this gallery isn't being used, we have to prioritise. We have to make clear that there is still stuff to be done. This, I think, is the on-air gallery. Is this the... Oh, in fact, we'll go there next. And again, to be honest, although people are sitting down and more generally looking towards the screens, you couldn't really tell that one was on and one was off, could you? Anyway, just to reference back that evening team meeting, what you saw is people are starting to finesse the way in which the stories will be told. So you heard talk of case studies. Now, that's an example of someone who has personal experience of the story that you're talking about. And those are the backbone of many a VT. But also vox pops, as we call them, vox populi in the Latin, you know, going out and just literally asking members of the public, what do you think about X? It's still a technique of television news that we use to this day. But also what you'll have picked up on. It's not just the reporter, of course, that goes out and has to source guess or choose locations or whatever else. In fact, actually, sometimes the reporter, as is the case with Katie Spencer, who's on another job today, providing you all this information on Sky News Raw, well, when she comes off at around about 5 o'clock today, she'll be straight on to doing a VT for 7 o'clock. We get our money's worth out of our correspondence here. One of the reasons why I'm quite glad to have moved on to presenting.
With no deal with Brexit, then probably on day one,
mustn't
they would
make.
cope. but they have no idea what they would do as the data.
Tight shot,
Coming to 21. On 22. Coming to 24.
Well, you've got
21.
try
Cut.
to manage the flow through Holyhead. and then you've got to
Name
look
her
at
again if you can.
The lorries and the trailers that are coming through.
Theresa May heads to Northern Ireland later. Senator George Mitchell, the man who brokered peace in the province, has told Sky News that Mrs May mustn't make any decision that might, in his words, make her assumptions as small as possible. And that includes the return to customs checks to the Irish border, since which the drives into Blevins in New York.
I mean, this is significant to Wales in a wider respect because 90% of what we export, agricultural products we export, goes to the EU. But the other thing that's coming through Holyhead, of course, are non-agricultural animals. And they were saying when we met them last week that they were going to meet DEFRA later last week to deal with non-agricultural animals.
22.
21.
Cut. Coming to 24 next.
Which will be held the weekend after we leave, we anticipate. The majority of the Irish racehorses that come through will come through Holyhead as well. And at present, there's uncertainty about how that's going to work. Coming through and going back.
Why? Because
24
they
cut.
have to have medical checks or something? I mean,
21 cut.
Agricultural animals, and they haven't been in the United Kingdom, and they haven't been considered as such so far.
Now,
Coming 22
Wales, of
cut.
course, did vote narrowly for Brexit.
Those numbers that you, Natasha, mentioning there, those are the cameras
What's
that
45?
she's cut in between, if you're wondering. So it gets slightly confusing. At Westminster, there is a camera 22. We are in gallery 22. That can lead to some mishaps.
It's in the last hour. It's coded. It's fine.
Okay.
Next will be the Blevins VT.
Snowdon. I've got half of Snowdon even in my constituency. The sort of sheep that the farmers of Dougal Meirionydd produce, there has been no market for them for decades, and they haven't been marketed in the United Kingdom either. They need to be able to export their livestock, and as I said, 90% of that goes to Europe. Other areas, of course, so if we have a no-tariff arrangement perhaps for agricultural products,
Okay, how long have we got left?
then that will affect, of course, you've got to have no tariff for one area, it's got to be for everything. So that will then affect steel, which is very important for
Coming to
Wales.
22.
No tariff then means
22.
that we could well be
Voting
having
vision,
steel
Adam.
back.
6
And
minutes.
21.
Spitting image.
But you see,
24.
You know, Holyhead,
Cut.
we're talking about Holyhead, there's direct route to Dublin.
Coming to one.
You'll often hear the director actually telling Adam when he is in vision. Sometimes you need to scratch or pick at something, and you don't want to do that when the camera's on you. Sometimes you also need to reach for a quick drink. Sometimes you need to find some notes. Sometimes you need to have a cough. All of these things the director can help you with by killing your microphone and telling you when you are not in vision.
And then for the land bridge to come through the United Kingdom and down to Europe, Holyhead is the major route for
Okay,
that.
so we're 52
22
days
cut.
away from Brexit. What are the priorities?
Coming to 21. On 21.
To avoid the problem?
Coming to 24.
Well, we've been
21
talking
staying
about
here.
the backstop and the implications. And it
How long left?
1 minute. 1 minute.
Minute left, Adam.
And I wonder how many government ministers have, frankly, because the freedoms for individuals to choose their identity and their citizenship, implicit with that is the freedom of movement. That it's very difficult to see that actually anything will be able to come
Blevins
up
VT
that
next.
will answer this in the backstop we presently have. And it is impossible to
Well, hang on, I mean,
22 cut.
how important this
freedom
is.
of movement on the island of Ireland and right to
21
citizenship
cut.
predate Britain's membership of the European Union.
But they were also, when the Good Friday Agreement was created, that they were under the assumption that we would remain within the overarching European rules and that they function within those. And this is now being questioned in terms of customs union and the single market requirements. And of
Yeah, but
course,
that's about goods,
the
it's not
question
about
with this,
people.
but people are moving as well, you see, across, and their right to choose citizenship. Now,
But that's not affected.
22 cut.
I mean, no one says
24.
people's rights are affected by
21
Brexit
cut.
in the island of Ireland.
but if you can't move capital across,
Oh, well, that's different.
yes. But
Staying on
these are
21?
these fundamental freedoms that are implicit in the Good Friday Agreement, either we have them or we don't, and that's what the government is presently questioning. And of course, it's interesting with this working group, which is entirely consists of members of the Conservative Party, which is hardly democracy as we
Camera
used to in
23,
parliamentary terms
read
operating,
into
and it's
Mitchell
quite an interesting
package.
concept and somewhat ironic.
Thanking out
But
of vision.
what we
23 will
see
be
here,
next.
but I would be arguing that
it's
for
Blevins
say,
VT
custody in the
next.
single market, if that has been discussed for Northern Ireland, well, in all honesty, to operate through a port like Holyhead, which is so critical to the fragile, the vulnerable economy of North Wales and Wales as a whole, that needs to be extended. The customs union and the single market needs to be extended throughout the United Kingdom in order for that to operate properly. But one thing that I would like to say as well, that we've been mentioning the government here, and going back to Wales, Welsh government, including Labour Welsh government, voted for a people's vote last week. And one of the other things that's holding us back here is the sheer intransigency of the Labour front bench that won't even discipline its own party members, something which they whipped them to vote for, the Yvette Cooper amendment. We're seeing them also
dropping in 22, voting vision.
It's the only place where Labour is in power.
So, what do you think is going to happen 52 days till we leave?
Coming to 21.
On
21.
I hope there will be serious discussion about the need for a customs union in the single market. I hope that those who are
Going a bit over now.
realise those proposals here in Westminster will actually start working together and talk as one voice. It's not a matter of having your own favourite proposal and working against each other. And I hope the government actually starts...
On 22?
In practice, we
21.
will see how things
Cut.
go. We're in this ridiculous fluctuating situation of having a week where little happens, and then when it all kicks off again next week, we shall see how it goes next week. Don't ask me to predict, because I have
22
to answer
cut.
you intelligently. But for anybody outside who's
Coming to
looking at
21.
this, who sees
Cut.
their jobs under threat because of this, they will be wondering why the government is
Read on
prepared to put so much
23
agony
next.
for an abstract exercise.
Okay, Ms Roberts MP, thank you very much indeed.
23, cut. Q.
Well, as Mrs May heads
Package
to
ready
Northern
to go?
Ireland later, Senator George Mitchell, the man who brokered peace in the province, has told Sky News that the Prime Minister mustn't make any decision that might, in his words, make a resumption of violence more possible. That includes a return to customs checks at the Irish border. Senator Mitchell spoke to our senior Ireland correspondent David Blevins in New York.
On the package, 2 minutes 30. Server A?
If anyone understands the risks, George Mitchell...
Well, that is now into a VT. You've heard that. That stands for videotape. It essentially means it's an edited report by our senior Ireland correspondent, David Blevins. So we're going to step away a little bit from all-out politics. And, you know, regular viewers of the channel will know that I am one of the presenters on Sky News' finest piece of output, the Sunrise programme. The reason it's so good, well, aside from the team and me, it's probably down to the lady that you'll be able to see shortly on the right of your picture, Sarah Jane Mina. She's been joined by Katie Spencer. You guys have been sending in some questions. Let's find out what you've all got to ask Sarah Jane.
Well, this is normally the time of day when Sarah Jane Mee would be getting to go home, but we've cornered you and we're forcing you to do a Q&A on Twitter, aren't we? You've had your debrief, haven't you, post-sunrise? That's what happens after the show finishes.
Yeah, had the debrief. I'd normally be leaving at about now, but I'm going to do a Q&A session, question and answer session on Twitter, which I've never done before.
So technology, so that'll be fun.
Technology. So
let's see if we can do this on
two
air.
phones. I'm not normally allowed my phone on camera. I'm always told off for checking Twitter under the desk in the studio, but I'm allowed to have my phone here. So
Shall we drag in Liv from social?
Come on, Liv, you're going to show me how it works.
How do we do this?
Okay, so we've curated questions, haven't we, from viewers this morning?
Yeah, so we posted a tweet asking for questions, and then what we've done is we've curated them into a feed so that you're able to answer them live on Twitter now.
Okay.
So you'll just hit, there's a little film button, and then you'll go live when you hit it, and you can answer everyone's question individually with a video.
So it's all getting very meta. Filming you, filming.
Yeah, exactly.
God, okay, and the hashtag is Ask Sky News if you're watching at home and you want to tweet me a question. This is the first one from James on Twitter. He says, what is the procedure when a major breaking news story happens? Is there a meeting to decide to break into other coverage? Right, I'm going to open this and record my answer to James now. Hi, James. I wouldn't say there's a meeting as such. There isn't enough time for that. We have producers working in our team who see the newsline come in and then they make calls. They start to verify this information. And once we've got enough verification, then a voice comes in my ear and tells me to break the news. And often we only have 2 or 3 lines of information. So we give what we can and then we chase it up and find more information for you at home.
For your tenure on Sunrise,
I've probably deleted that now.
Don't delete
Liv, just
it.
make sure
Come
that's
on,
gone
Liv,
to
have you
James.
sent it? You've done some huge stories during Sunrise that have broken in that way, though, haven't you? I was thinking the Brussels bombing.
Yeah, Brussels
that was a big one, wasn't
and
it?
the Manchester bombing as well. I was the first live anchor on the scene that morning. I got to Manchester just hours after it had happened and we went live. We brought Sunrise on air earlier that morning at 5 o'clock. And it was a very personal story for me because I'd lived in Manchester for 6 years. And I'd used to go and watch concerts at the arena. I knew the city centre really well. I've got a real affinity with Manchester. So that was a really testing morning. In fact, I think somebody's asked me about one of the... let me just try and find it. I think it was asking about, what was the story that you've worked on that's affected you the most? Yeah, what's the most memorable event? Mark McGovern's asked that. And for me, it was the Manchester bombing because it's like my second home. So I went up there with just a bag, a notepad and a pen, cameraman, soundman, and ended up sort of living back in Manchester for a week, covering the story as it unfolded. But that was very upsetting, but I took it very personally and really wanted to do that story justice for the people of Manchester. So there you go, Mark. I've answered your question live
We'll
on
do
Channel
the video in a minute.
523. Yeah, we'll do the video for that one.
It does. I think that's one of the things we do really well on Sunrise, though, isn't it? You see a lot of the other breakfast shows, they're stuck at desks, and that's what they do. But you, I mean, take it at the start of the week, for instance.
Yesterday,
Nissan story.
Yeah. I've just thawed out from Sunderland. Warm people in Sunderland, really cold temperatures. I was up there yesterday morning. I got a phone call around 2 o'clock Sunday afternoon, and that's how it works in breaking news. It was literally, I was halfway through a pub lunch, had to down knife and fork, get in a car, drive from Kent to London, pack a quick bag, get on a train from London up to Sunderland. I arrived in Sunderland, I think, just after 8:30 in the evening. Met the team there, had a quick chat about what we were going to do the next day, and try and get some sleep, because of course the adrenaline's pumping, because you're sort of planes, trains and automobiles trying to get there.
I mean, it's full on what you do, though, isn't it?
I love it. And we want to get out there to the stories. I mean, everybody says, oh, it's so cushy, you know, being in the studio, but we want to be out there telling stories. So when it justifies the presenters being out on the road, if it tells the story better, then we love being out there. I mean, I must admit, it tends to happen in the cold temperatures. We tend to get sent out. I think the viewers quite like seeing us out in the cold, though. Makes a change to the cushy studio, yeah.
Do you just have a grab bag ready to go then?
You'd like to think I was that organised.
Right, okay.
Kay Bailey, Queen of Sky News, always has one packed. And I always think, yes, I should do that, I should do that. But yeah, anything that's in my grab bag is normally not very practical. It's normally sort of packed for winter temperatures when it's summer, summer when it's winter. I never quite get it right. But I'm always ready to go. The phone's always on, so you just never know when the call's going to come.
Should we do another question then?
Okay, what should we do? What advice would you give to aspiring journalists? I'm currently studying my first year of a journalism degree, and I want to know what I should do to further my opportunities. This is from Gemma Nettle. Hello to you, Gemma.
Yes.
Here we go. Hi, Gemma. When I first started out, I only wished that YouTube was around, because I think it's so easy to get opportunities now to hone your craft. So if you can't get work experience at your local newspaper, radio station, TV station, or on a university publication or college paper, something like that, go to YouTube. Film things that you're really passionate about and put them out there and get feedback. I think it's a really good way of just putting yourself in front of camera and telling stories.
You are particularly good on social media, though, aren't you, as well?
Just check them
check they haven't deleted it. Do you think that's a part of your job, I guess, as well, to be a presence on social media now?
It's amazing, isn't it? Because when I used to watch TV when I was younger, newsreaders or programme presenters would read out letters. There'd be a postbag. And we still do get a few letters here at Sky News, but the immediacy of, well, I say email, even that's an old medium now, but Twitter, Instagram, comments on YouTube, comments coming into us via the Sky News apps, you really get a sense of what people are interested in. It's sort of, when we come in of a morning, we'll put lots of tweets out, and you'll notice the ones that take off and people really focus their attention on. And it sort of gives us an idea of how the rest of the news agenda's going to go that day. And I just like being able to interact with viewers in the morning as well.
I mean, is that part of the joy of doing a breakfast show as well? Because people have their routines, and I guess they sort of consider you a part of their daily...
I love being at people's breakfast tables. I mean, half the time in the breaks I'm eating my breakfast as well, so I'm with you on that one. But it's just nice being able to be with people as they start their day, and they're often, you know, we're often the first person that they see in the morning as they switch on the TV, and we give them all the information they need to get up and get on with their day. So I find that a real privilege, and I really like doing it as well. And I love the interaction through social media. You really do get to chat to people and get their feedback. So
when do you sleep, though?
Oh, when do I sleep?
When's bedtime on a typical weeknight? Is it embarrassingly
sleeps for the
early?
week. Well, no. Do you know what? I wasn't very well recently, so I've made a New Year's resolution, which is still standing, to go to bed earlier. So I'm probably going to bed about 7, half 7 now, or like starting to unwind.
Right.
Like no social media, none of that. A good hour before bed, reading a book and just unwinding, because, you know, I do run on adrenaline, and it's really important to get sleeping. Afternoon naps are key as well. I love an afternoon nap. It feels so decadent.
Is that your plan for the day?
Yes, I'll probably go. Do you know what? I'll go to the gym today. I've got so much adrenaline with doing this and doing lots of other things. I think I'll go to the gym. I'll be good today. And there was a really good question here. I'm trying to find it. It was about people that have been here for 30 years. Where is it?
Is our big anniversary today.
This is where you keep talking, so while I find the question, we're looking out for each other. Where is it? Oh yeah, here we go. Scott Wheeler Jr. Is there anyone still from day one, including off camera at Sky News? 30 years service. Yes, plenty of on-screen talent. Kay Burley, 30 years. She posted a great picture on Twitter today of her with all the original lineup of presenters, all men. And Kay is the only one standing. Adam Bolton as well, and Martin Brunt, our crime correspondent, and Adam, our cameraman, give us a wave. Celebrating 30 years at Sky News. He got a nice bottle of champagne engraved, wasn't it?
There you go.
There you go.
And when will you officially have done 30 years?
Oh gosh, how long have I been at Sky now? Because I've been at Sky Sports and Sky News.
You're downstairs,
Yeah, so I started out at Sky Sports and Sky News. I was the only broadcaster to do both. And God, I just turned... Oh, I'm about to give away my age then. I've been here about a decade doing both, but Sunrise 2 years now. So I've just passed the 10-year mark. Got another 20 years to go
What do we... Catching you up, what do you get for 10 years?
Actually, what have I got for 10 years?
For 10 years?
No, anyway, everyone's looking slightly nonplussed. I didn't get anything. I don't need anything. Being able to come in every morning. Oh, that's the boss on the phone now.
Telling you where your present is.
Coming in every morning. You don't need any presents. Quite right too, boss. Quite right too.
Well, thank you so much for talking to us.
You're
going
welcome.
to be taking a few more questions.
I've got quite a few coming in now. One of them saying, "How do you look so fabulous?" I think that's from my mum. Thanks, Mum. Good hour in hair and makeup, believe me, and some good lighting. Can't believe we're under strip lighting here in the kitchen.
No, it's not good. We should have some sort of Instagram filter if we're doing this on Twitter or something.
Oh, Liv, can we sort out post-tweets? Can we stick a filter on there? So I'm going to answer a few more, and you can follow it on Twitter.
And
that's our producer off camera there, just knocking things over. Come on, Neil. You did. I saw you out of the corner of my eye.
Neil Walker's breaking stuff. Neil Patterson's doing the voiceover today. Who you usually work with, of course.
Has he been good?
He's been a little bit cheeky.
He is cheeky.
Before we cross back to him, is there any sort of gossip?
Well, when they did say we're doing
this
this new thing for the 30th anniversary, Sky News Raw, it's going to be uncut, unfiltered in the newsroom. Neil Patterson is providing the commentary. I was like, good luck. How long are we going to stay on air there for? How long have we lasted now? We've been on air since 7, so he hasn't taken us off the air yet. No complaints to Ofcom.
I don't think we've had to use the swear button yet.
No, but there is a big swear jar for Neil. Doesn't swear, I'm lying.
And we will hand you back to the live feed.
Yeah, thanks very much, guys. Like a profane Alistair Bruce, let's take you elsewhere in the newsroom. No swearing from me. It's actually, I think, why they asked me to do this. This is probably the one place that I could have to stand with a microphone open all the time where I'm not going to step. Anyway, we're looking again at the newsroom. And a lot of you have been asking, why are we forcing our staff to stand? Actually, it's an option you can have here. Plenty of people choosing, indeed, as our head of news does, John Riley, prefers an office without a chair. Does mean you have to get a kind of a computer screen to elevate it. Paul Harrison as well, not one for sitting down. Not sure that there is actually any empirical evidence that it helps you out, but it does keep you on your toes, keeps the blood pumping. Well, All Out Politics has just come back on air, so it's probably an appropriate time for us to think about how we broadcast our coverage from Westminster. Over the past few weeks, of course, from before Christmas, in fact, you'll have seen plenty of shots like this from what we call Abingdon Green, and that is just opposite the Sovereign's entrance. That's essentially the Lord's entrance to the Houses of Parliament. If you're kind of trying to imagine it on a map, basically at the River Thames running left to right behind that. And look, guess who it is? It's Enda Brady. Enda, tell us about what goes on in Abingdon Green. How does it all work there?
Well, good morning from the very heart of Westminster. This is where all of the political coverage comes from. We're on College Green, And this is where all the broadcasters come down for all the very significant political developments. And of course, they've been here for weeks and months on end, really. I guess you could say for the past 2.5 years, this has been the very beating heart of British political journalism. Now, these structures here are what the broadcasters put in to house all their microphones, their camera kit, their equipment, their cables, correspondents, presenters. This is where we're based. This is Sky News just up here, and I'm not sure if you can see her just up there, but Beth Rigby, our new political editor, is up there and waiting for us. Now, normally, we're only allowed to have these structures here when Parliament is sitting. When Parliament goes into recess, we have to take everything down. So it was good news the other week, really, that there's not going to be a February recess because of Brexit, so everything can stay exactly as it is. This is a Henry Moore statue here, made in the 1960s. It's called Knife Edge, and that is something that a lot of people would walk past and not really ever look at, but we see it all the time when we're here. So we're going to go up inside the Sky News studio here on College Green, and we're going to have a chat with our new political editor, who is Beth Rigby. I'll just run up these steps. Now, normally this would be all locked up and there would be security here. We've opened it up. We've got behind-the-scenes access. And here is our very own Beth Rigby. Congratulations on your new appointment. Welcome to your office. Beth is our new political editor. Beth, good morning to you. Talk us through a typical day in the life of a political editor.
Well, I'm not a political editor yet, but I'll talk to you about what do you want to know about my day? What do I do? I wake up quite early and I go straight onto Twitter and I go through all of the morning news, maybe send out a tweet about 6:30 in the morning, and then we come into the lobby. I get into work at about 9, but the kind of day in the lobby, I would say in there, we have a big press briefing with the Prime Minister's spokesperson at 11, and that's when all the different lobby journalists from all the different newspapers and broadcasters, we all go along.
How many people
The guy's James Slack. He used to be the political editor of the Mail. There's about 30 to 40 there. It's off camera. In America, they actually do it on camera, but we do it off camera. And he runs through the diary of the Prime Minister and all the Cabinet and all the things that are happening that day. And then we ask questions about whatever we want. And sometimes it goes on for 20 minutes and sometimes it goes on for an hour. It just depends what's going on. But that's sort of 11 o'clock. And then around that, we'll have set pieces. Is the Prime Minister doing a speech? Like she's doing a speech today in Ireland. We'll have select committees, so we need to go and watch that. Debates in the chamber. And on really big days, as you know, we are here. We'll be here with it all going on behind us. And the reason that broadcasters all come to here on Ab Green, and you can see, Endor, you just walk through it, there's loads of different tents at the moment, and that's because it's been so busy on Brexit and all of the stuff and the parliamentary somersaults and twists and turns on the meaningful vote and May's Brexit deal. All the broadcasters for weeks have been here, and because we think it will kick off again, we're all still here. So we're not broadcasting here for the moment, but everyone just keeps their tents. I think the BBC's over in the far corner, ITV here, we're here, and then all the radio stations down on the green. And we're quite lucky because we've now got this Perspex.
So I was about to ask, what difference does that make?
Well, it makes it warmer. If you have a look, Jonathan, these are. So this is the glamour. This is the up top, the lippies on.
Let's check out the shoes.
Check out my shoes. I mean, and you know, and I'd also be wearing thermals.
Because it gets so cold here.
It's freezing. And say when I do it here with someone like Kay or Adam, they can't move. Like Kay will come here at
literally anchored to the
2 p.m. and she will leave at 5 p.m. She can't go to the loo. She can't move. So you get absolutely freezing. You just have to stay. So the Perspex makes it much warmer. But the actual real reason we had to put it up was you would have known.
A lot of noise in the background.
There was a lot of noise and a lot of protests. I mean, this place behind us, it's calm now, but it was full of protesters and they were shouting and sometimes really unpleasant.
Breaking news. Larry the cat has just walked past the front door at Downing Street. We're looking at Larry. No, we're looking at him. No, he's fine. He's fine. I think he's just earwigging on cabinet. So you sit. Larry the cat is on air at the moment.
If cats could speak, that would be a good source. That cat.
And tell me, when do you sleep? You know, your phone is going all the time. Politicians, ministers, people texting you, spokespeople. When do you rest? Do you get any rest?
I don't get that much stress, but I don't mind because I love it. So, look, it's really busy at the moment, and there is a sort of patter to the day where it starts really early and it ends really late, but that's kind of comes with the territory. I mean, we're in exceptional times, aren't we? I tend to try and it depends if I'm doing a live in the 10 o'clock news, but I try and get home, I try and see my kids and my husband. I try and get to bed quite early. I tend to watch the 10 o'clock news, then I might watch a bit of Newsnight or Question Time, and then I try and get to bed by about 11.
And you travel quite a bit as well. The Prime Minister goes away, you go with her.
Wherever
talk us
she
through.
goes,
how does that work?
Well, actually, Faisal, our political, he's over in Ireland with her at the moment. But, I mean, look, wherever she goes, one of us will go with her. And if it's not
on
Faisal,
the same plane
it
or
will be
different?
me. It depends. I mean, when she does trips away, like when she went to, if she goes to the States or something, she has a plane, and what happens is we all have to get there really early, and then we all wait for her to come, and we all get on her plane. And what she tends to do is she'll obviously sit at the front, and we're all in the back, and then she'll come down the plane, and then she'll give us all a briefing. And that's like really great, the Prime Minister's briefing on the plane, and then it's inevitably there'll be a story from that, and then we'll all write it up on the plane, and we come out and we
You've got no signal on the plane,
No, we're all trapped in the plane, writing our copy, and then we come out and we release it to the world. But she travels a lot, and someone always has to go with her. I mean, at Sky, we man-mark them. Wherever they go, we go. I went up to Staffordshire last week because Boris Johnson was doing a speech. It's really important that we're actually there with them.
And what's the Prime Minister like then, away from the cameras and the microphones?
What's she like?
As a person, what would you, just describe chatting to the Prime Minister?
She's not dissimilar to how you see her, performing. She's very reserved. She's very polite. She doesn't. David Cameron was really effervescent, and he'd chat and he'd come in and he'd dominate the room. That's not her style. She's much more low-key. As I said, she's reserved. When I saw her at the garden party in the summer, I put on a sort of very snazzy pair of shoes, and we chatted about my shoes.
So she noticed your footwear?
Yeah, we had a chat about shoes, which I can't, I put them on especially for her, because shoes are her thing. So we talk a bit about that, but she does. I mean, it's not her thing. She's a reserved PM, and any MP would also say that. I mean, her staff tell me that when she's really, off camera and behind the scenes and with her in a team, she's actually really funny and she cracks loads of jokes. But she certainly doesn't show that when she's with us. She's
very serious, very professional.
Yeah, just very reserved and professional, but, really polite. Really
so tell me, political reporting, is that something you always wanted to get into?
Yeah.
Anyone watching, any young person who wants to get into the media, into journalism, just talk me through. So you were in newspapers before. So what did you study? How did you become a political correspondent?
So my love for politics really started when I was at school, because I just loved reading political stories. My parents used to get the papers, and I'd go through all the papers. And then I did a politics A-level. And then I went to university and I did a political degree. I did social and political science. And then at university, I did, what we all do. Like I launched a little magazine in college, and I, tried to write for the university paper. And then I got a internship at the Financial Times, and then they gave me a graduate trainee job, and then I worked there for 15 years. But I loved politics, but I was at the Financial Times. It was a business paper. So I was actually a business financial journalist for 10 years. So I went on a journey where I knew what my end point was, but I was a financial journalist before I moved into the lobby and became a political journalist, because the FT gave me my route in, and that's what I did. And I actually loved doing finance as well. But I did banks, I did retailers, I used to write about M&S, that's why I've got a love of clothes. All clothes retailers, love them. I used to write about Waitrose, all sorts. And then I came to the lobby in 2010 for the Financial Times.
So how was it when you first kind of arrived as a newbie?
It was hard.
Are people kind of, excluded if you haven't been there forever?
They're a bit like, who are you? You're like in the lobby now? When I started, it was massively male-dominated as well.
Was that a problem?
Well,
how were you treated?
They're very nice, but it just felt a bit of an alien environment, because it was a kind of... it was very male-dominated. There were no female political editors. There were a couple of deputies, and it was just, it's changing now. It's opening up a bit, but that was 8 years ago. I mean, Parliament not just behind the scenes in terms of what we do, but on the benches as well, has changed massively over the past 8-10 years in terms of getting female MPs in as well. Both the Conservative Party and Labour have really worked on that. But it used to be very much an all-boys club in there, and it is changing.
It's changing, right? Beth Rigby, our new political editor on Sky News. Thanks for your time. Fascinating insight into what goes on here. We'll step out of the way and we'll leave everyone watching Sky News Raw with a shot of where it all goes on and what we do here in the heart of Westminster.
And thanks very much indeed. Beth Rigby, commonly known around the newsroom as Riggers. She's going to be a fantastic political editor when she takes over in May. And she also scares me witless. So, yeah, she'll be deploying that against the politicians that she comes up with. Now, what are we looking at here? We are looking at the afternoon production team meeting. Emily Deaker on the left there, speaking to, on the right, Jonathan Samuels, who will be presenting. The chap that's standing in the middle, you'll recall we mentioned him in the 9:30 meeting. That's, of course, Ian Woods, one of our senior correspondents. I think he's been assigned to the Liam Neeson story today. At the very least, he was certainly contributing to it. Let's just have a quick listen in and see what's going on.
Yeah, and I think he's brilliant. If he had confined his comments to the idea of revenge out of an incident in the truckers, it wouldn't have attracted nearly as much attention. It's the racial element as well. It's the phrase black bastard. And what doesn't come across is the black bastard, which is what he did in the interview.
We'll guess that in the 2 and 4. The other story that I really like is the carer story.
Yes, I like that.
Story? Carers.
So remind me that statistic, because it's an incredible statistic.
So 600 people a day leaving jobs because they need to be able to get home and care for people at home. So they've got a normal job in the day, and then at home they care for somebody, be it somebody that's elderly, be it somebody that's disabled. This figure is just unbelievable. So we're going to try and get a case study. I think it's the best way to tell the story rather than an expert. I think it's try and get a real person who is living through this.
I mean, that shouldn't be impossible because there are loads of organisations that work with people.
Exactly. So let's go for that at kind of 3:10.
Okay, good idea.
We need to keep an eye today on missing Libby. We are trying to get Hull University students to talk to us. Understandably, I think they don't want to at the moment. There's a real movement from them to try and look for her. So we're just waiting for an update from the police if they've got any new info, or from Libby's parents gave a statement yesterday. It was a kind of really controlled police statement yesterday, so there could be something again today. It is Sally Lockwood in Hull.
Are we expecting anything from the police? Have they said that?
It's just as and when they've got something new to tell us, really. So, what else?
And this fire story
Yeah, we're sending 4 children who died, and there are adults and a child who are in hospital. So again, it will be just kind of watch and wait and see what happens.
As we've been saying all the way through this programme, we're trying to bring you as close to a newsroom as possible. Occasionally that does mean that bad language slips through. So if there was any bad language in the last minute or so, our apologies. We will try and keep a closer eye on that in future. But we're talking about real life, and we're talking about real stories. And sometimes those provoke real emotions in the people that are covering them, as well as the people that are the subject of the story.
So Kate, John Costa just did a little impression of her on set. Yeah, which might be quite fun to...
There's a social media responsibility, safe internet data, and then there was also a suicide prevention conference.
Why not? That sounds great.
Try and handle both.
Thanks, Kate.
And so
let's move over to the morning team. Now, if you keep an eye on your clock, you'll be able to see, of course, John Culshaw speaking to Adam Bolton there about the Margaret Thatcher. But this is the production desk for the morning team. Colin Brazier in charge. Sam Foster is the lady that you're looking at, is closest to the screen there. Now, their show starts in roughly 17 minutes' time, so again, you'll notice people aren't panicking. There's no sense of stress, not much anyway. A lot of the work will have already been done in terms of the scripts and the openers. Others will be getting duped across from earlier rundowns. Others will be getting created anew. And Colin Brazier himself, I'm sure, will be playing around. Now, the studio, of course, for the show from 11. We've been in Studio 6 at the Studio 6 for Sunrise. Then we were in Westminster for the All Out Politics show. But you will know, of course, the Glass Box, which is across the road from where we are. Glass Box, not an official name for it, but it has become so. I always try to refer to it as Philip Schofield's The Cube, but that didn't catch on. Colin Brazier will be heading over there soon. In fact, I think we might be able to see him at some point soon. A lot of people working in this building, not just Sky News. In essence, you've got the boss of Sky News, Big Boss, works in this building as well. A lot of the senior management of Sky PLC. That is the back of Colin Brazier, who's just doing final preparations before we come in. Again, you'll notice that all of the cameras, as with Studio 6, are not automated, but are all controlled remotely. Colin Brazier, checking the hair. Always got to do that before you go on air. But shall we go downstairs from the Glass Box? You'll notice that it's on stilts almost. At the entrance to the building, you'll be able to find Katie Spencer. I don't know what on earth she's doing on the red sofa. In fact, oh, she can hear me, in fact. Katie, what are you doing there? Come on, get up. You've got a lot of work to do today.
I'm having a rest. Come on, you get to sit on a chair all day, so it's my turn now. So we're in Sky Central, where a lot of people who don't just work for Sky News, they work for the other channels work. And I just thought we'd give you a little guided tour of some of the perks you get from working at Sky sometimes. Look, this is Sky Cinema, so this week, if you get the time, if you get to pop out from your day's work, you can see all these sort of various things at the cinema that we've got here. Look, you've got all this cinema memorabilia as well. Bane from The Dark Knights over there, his costume. Also, we've got Batman as well, so it's quite good fun. But guys, have we ever been to the cinema on a Sky News shift?
Never.
Never. Not on a Sky News shift. You want to work for one of the other channels, that's how you get to go to the cinema on your lunch break. So if I take you out here to the auditorium bit, over here we have various different restaurants where you get to enjoy your lunch, pick from a wide variety of menus. If you're a vegan, we've been celebrating Veganuary, so you can pick from a range of vegetarian delights. We'll take you through here. Look up here. You might be able to see Colin is already in the Glass Box up there, gearing up to get ready for his show at 11 o'clock. That's Sarah, the floor manager, giving us a little wave there. He's got 15 minutes beforehand, so I would imagine now is the time where he's just double-checking the rundown and having a look at things like that. But come on, are we up for a walk? Stairs. This is where my lack of fitness will be shown for everyone on Sky News Raw to see. But so, if you're reporting on a live story on the day, what you have to do, because remember, the general production team is in an entirely different building. If you know that you're a reporter who's on a live story, you have to factor in probably 10 minutes to get over here and to get mic'd up and to get ready to be on set. I have to say, sometimes I've managed it in 5, but you're generally a bit out of breath, which is not a good look. Right, here we go. You can see all these people that work at Sky who have these leisurely coffee breaks. Come on, why are we working so hard? Right, Colin is in there getting ready for his show. Shall we go and see if we can annoy him a little bit? Now, you might remember from the last time we were talking with Sarah Jane, Adam Murch, who's the cameraman. Hello, Adam. He's been here 30 years. Adam, you've got an interesting fact about where we're standing at the moment, haven't you?
Well, this used to be the Harrods Depository.
Yes, Harrods used to be based here.
Not something from Harrods, it came from here.
So there you go. Interesting fact for you about where we're standing. Right, come on. I think we've got time to go inside the Glass Box. Obviously, when they're going live, you have to make sure you're very quiet. Colin. Avon calling. How are you?
I've already got makeup on. Don't need to buy any, love.
Okay, it's fine. Can you show us around?
Yeah, come on in, come on in.
This is your home, really, isn't it?
Home from home. The glass box. Come on through.
So
this is Sarah, who keeps us all in order.
On hand.
You don't have anything to say to the camera?
No. So this studio, Colin, it sort of moves around throughout the day, doesn't it?
The studio does, the desk does.
The desk.
The desk does. It's important to be precise in journalism, I think you find, Katie. Yeah, it does. The desk rotates, so you get different backdrops all the while. We like it here. You get a bit of natural light, which is unusual, as you know, for a studio. The acoustics are a bit peculiar. Your voice bounces back off the glass a little bit, so you have to sort of slightly modulate your voice. And it can be quite distracting. So, I mean, you know this, when you're, the viewer doesn't, but as you're looking into the camera, you'll know this from doing live location stuff, you're looking into the camera, and the most distracting thing, well, either high-tone pitch coming through your ears, it's very distracting, or movement just off the side of the camera. Do you find that very distracting? I find it quite distracting. So, for instance, you've got a camera over here, and you've got people coming down the stairs waving.
Of course, that's the thing. It's always fun when you've got someone like putting their coat on in the background of shot, which occasionally
or occasionally, because
happens,
we'll do long shifts, sometimes 4 hours, at which point you've got to eat at some stage, and you'll find people filming you as you eat your sandwich, so you feel slightly prurient. So I tend to hide where Sarah is.
It's a fairly new thing as well, having these robotic cameras as well, isn't it? Because in the old studio we did have
there were robotic cameras. Robotic cameras there. Robotic cameras have been around for a long time. And you have to dodge them occasionally because the people who control them aren't here or anywhere near here. So occasionally they'll swoop and you've got to duck.
Have you ever had any awkward moments where the camera hasn't quite moved into...
Not really. They're all pre-programmed and they tend to move quite slowly. Like some real cameramen, in fact, who reach a certain age and move quite slowly.
Oh, Adam's 30 years today, you know.
Well done, Adam. Well, we've done many a job together. Can you think of any particularly memorable occasions?
Royal job?
A few royal trips, they were fun. Royal trips, fun.
Talk us through the show as well itself. So, ahead of the show actually going to air, what level of preparation have you got? Do you already know what guests are on? Have you already worked out questions?
And as you know, crikey, somebody said to me this morning, how long have you been at Sky? I said 22 years, of which about half of the time has been spent presenting. And actually, when you're steeped in it and doing it every day, you have this sort of residual level of knowledge about stories and institutions and the way the news works that actually puts a base under sort of how far you can fall, as it were.
That's not us, is it? What time is it?
Don't panic. No, what time is it? I missed the clock. Where's the... Sorry, you shout. Give me a 5-minute warning. So you've got this sort of base level of knowledge, which almost just sort of needs topping up. And on a story, for instance, like Brexit, I don't need to think twice about what the backstop is because it's it's hopefully lodged. Don't ask me what the backstop is, but it's lodged. It's sort of lodged in there. But you've still got to cram. It is a bit like doing an exam some days. The court cases, you've got to make sure you don't say anything legally daft. So you've got to do your due diligence. And there are certain things, as you know, which after a while you develop a little bit of a spider sense about a guest or a topic, and you know that is eggshells, and you need to tread quite carefully.
And also, I guess, when it's certain politicians, is there a sense that you might know that there'll be an answer that they want to give? So it's finding a way to...
Sure, which is fine, which is fine, you know how to play that. There are some politicians who you know could be trouble. I funny enough, I interviewed him, I met him in the flesh up in Bradford, George Galloway, who was briefly the Respect MP for East Bradford, wasn't he? And actually charming, but on the telly, he was a hand grenade with the pin half out, a little bit. So there are people like that. It shouldn't render you cowardly. You should still ask the questions that need to be put, but you are conscious, perhaps, that there may be an attempt to do a bit of grandstanding. You've still got to put the questions right.
How many years have you been at Sky now?
22.
22?
You get less for murder, as the floor manager said earlier.
Has it changed a lot in 22 years?
Yeah, enormously. It's been domesticated, it's been house-trained. We fulfil a function that I think, I wasn't here right at the beginning, you need to talk to people like Kay Burley and Adam Bolton, but even in the time, I was talking to somebody the other day about the sort of that time around about 9/11 in particular. And Adam will remember this stuff. We took sort of risks in the field, places like Afghanistan, Iraq, southern Lebanon, which we wouldn't take now.
Really?
Really. I look back and I think, that was hairy. And I think it was partly because we were still a little bit wet behind the ears, our sense of risk management. The whole industry's changed in this regard. It was a little bit Wild Westy, and that's definitely changed now.
What's your take on social media? Do you think it has become a part of a journalist's role to engage with that?
I think back, and I'm 50, and therefore all middle-aged men think the world is going to hell in a handcart, don't they? But I remember interviewing Sebastian Faulks, a novelist, Birdsong, most memorably, who said to me, this was the first, on air, said to me, this is the first generation in human history which will be more stupid than the previous one, which is never, is a very tendentious thing to say. But I think, he's a literary figure, he's a thoughtful man, and it was an interesting idea. I say no more than that he was suggesting that social media is not making us more thoughtful, actually.
How long have we got until...
How long have we got, Sarah?
10:52.
7 minutes.
7 minutes.
Till on air?
Till on air.
Right.
Can we have a quick look at your rundown as well? So what have we got coming up?
This might be about... Thank you, darling. Thank you.
Coffee, essential.
Coffee essential. You've got to raise your metabolic rate. The doctor's not happy about that.
Scripts, because if anything goes wrong and the computer crashes...
Yeah, and here's the thing. I mean, again, in some respects, working in a studio is easier than your job sort of on the road. But I remember when in the late 90s, was it late 90s, covering a story about foot and mouth and having a young baby at home and not sleeping much that night before, fine through the day, getting to the 5 o'clock broadcast and just losing my train of thought quite horribly. Such that I thought that's the end of my TV career. And somebody reminded me of that thing that happened, a not dissimilar thing happened to Winston Churchill in the House of Commons, where launching into a long speech, got halfway through it, and then completely forgot where he was, what he was saying. And thereafter, he always made sure he had a piece of paper with 4 words scribbled on it, little keywords that could just prompt him into another thought. So I tend to do that. If I'm doing an interview, I'll just have some words, particularly if I'm at the news wall, because, your mind can sometimes stray, can't it?
I'd say I always have notes in my hands.
Just a couple of words.
Even if you don't look
just
at
a jog. Just a jog. And this is slightly different. The scripts are, the autocue does fail periodically. The key thing is just not to be scared. Yeah. You are talking to one person, aren't you? I mean, not literally. But it's a conversation. And I think I hope we've moved away from that slightly sort of declamatory style of news presenting, which was about this sort of Walter Cronkite authority figure, this is the news, to something a bit more curious, a bit more thoughtful. And I think of someone like Evan Davis, for instance, on BBC Now, the PM presenter, who absolutely exemplifies that people are not going to buy anymore that we know everything, because they know lots as well now. We're not the custodians of information like we used to be. So that sort of authority, that false authority that we used to try and communicate in this very declamatory way, is old hat.
Well, we do have to leave you to it. You want a glug of your coffee before you start as well. Just to sum up, first couple of stories that we're doing.
Well, this dreadful house fire in Stafford is going to... We've got a reporter on the scene there who'll tell us what they know.
Right.
Again, I mean, she may not know as much as she's able to tell us at this stage for legal reasons or reasons around sensitivity towards the family. Dreadful story. That will probably leave the bulletin all day, I would have thought.
Leave you to it, and we'll be quietly lurking in the background, so apologies if you hear us making the noise in the background. Good luck. Thank you for talking to us, Colin. So what are we on? We're on 10:55, so 5 minutes before Colin goes live, and we'll just creep out so we're not in shot, and we'll leave you to go back to the live feed.
Katie, thanks very much indeed. Just again, Colin Brazier, of course, he's been in this game for many, many years, but, we're 4 minutes ahead of the top of the hour, and he's quite happy to talk away about how he does his job, about what comes on. We are surrounded with quality and experience here at Sky News. This is Gallery 22, just as All Out Politics approaches the end of the hour.
On the bumper.
Take it to 35. So
10 seconds. 9.
And moving us into weather as well. Just a couple of bits of housekeeping. Our Europe correspondent, Mark Stone, has been in touch. He's asked me to say hello to all of you watching us on Sky News Raw in 523 or elsewhere. Mark Stone already owes me six pints for getting the word hamster into a two-way 10 years ago. So that's another 6 pints you owe me, Mark.
20 on weather.
Also, big shout out to those watching from the canoe. We know you're watching today. But again, we're going to be moving from Gallery 22 back to Gallery 21 as transmission moves from Westminster to the glass box.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Rolling bumper, 5 seconds. 4. Sponsor wipe next. 3.
Teasing State of the Union at the end as well.
1. Wiping. in Vision? Q.
Well, that's all
15 to
from
bumper.
Politics here on Sky News. Please join us again tomorrow on our 30th and 1
10 to bumper.
Coming up, the latest
9,
from Stafford
8,
as for
Scroll down to Q.
die
Scroll
in
down
a
to Q.
house fire.
Read on.
4,
Read on.
And just before we go, time to tell you
2,
tonight we have a special
1.
programme here on Sky News. President
Take the
Trump's
bumper.
State of the Union address. That's
Rolling
at 2
bumper.
a.m.
5 seconds. 4.
2 to a fair. 1, 2.
1.
Just got in there. Just got it. Sorry, that was a bit tight at the end. Great stuff.
And we
Really good
managed
show.
to
Well done.
squeeze in every single bit of information that we needed to there. Adam Bolton, a complete pro. Now it's just a little bit of prep time ahead of Colin Brazier taking over in the glass box. And let's just watch as this gallery is essentially unstaffed. Let's move back to gallery 21.
Have we got cameras? Claire? Brilliant. I want an MCU of Colin, please. And then out of the openers, Claire, just
cue you for that pull-out.
TX Gallery. We are now in Gallery 21, okay?
Alan, you've spoken to Downing Street then?
I have. Downing Street are happy to. Stop it.
I don't want a big logo push in, just a desk-wide loose MC.
Go ahead, knock 10.
Yeah, we have.
You want the who?
Yeah.
So Downing Street
yes, thank you, yeah.
and Stafford, both live shots in the openers, okay, in 1 minute.
Basically,
Becky, as soon as we're off the live shot, you can run in, okay?
do a thing.
Yeah,
I've got
it's gone up to 10.
I've got
Let's
you reading a
keep it on
statement and a
for the
grab.
first
We haven't got the
quarter, so
grab
that
yet.
we've
I'll let you know, okay? Someone will let you know.
Story then.
I've got the graphic, though. I think I've got the graphic. So ident opens to Colin. Got an LVO, then a live shot OS6, followed by a live shot OS5. 2 more LVOs, then a full shot Neeson grab. Can you shout at me?
Becky on OS6. Becky Hayes, Adam in the gallery. As soon as we are clear of your live shot opener, I will step in
do a
if I
map
were you, 'cause you
into
are
boxes
right
with
at the
OS6.
top.
1 minute.
Yeah, I was just going to say, so the graphic is there for you to speak
45
to.
seconds, so I
the
don't
grab
know.
is not there yet. I will talk.
Also, Q, all right?
I will let you know
Colin,
as
you
soon
have
as,
next
because it's
door.
just
What's
faded.
his name?
That's grand thing in the back of the chair.
Confidence is high, Ben.
Adam G is the
Nice
producer.
Guys, Adam here
of
did
Auto
a shout as soon as
Ben
that
Fisher,
grab
the
is good to go
director.
for
They are running the
House
show now, so let's listen in 50 seconds to the top of the hour.
30 seconds, ident roll.
Thanks, man.
45 seconds to you guys.
30 seconds to the ident.
Okay, stand by. 30 seconds to your live shot.
Alan,
20 seconds.
house fire grab,
Yes.
page 27, as you know,
20.
could appear any moment. It's not there yet.
10 seconds.
15.
9.
Ident next. Here we go.
7, 6, 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. All the idents.
Ident's running. Stand by. 15 seconds to camera 8.
Coming to Colin in 10 seconds. 9, 8, 7, 6 seconds.
Camera 8. Here we go.
5,
Mic's up.
4, 3, 2, 1.
And Envision Q.
This is Sky News at 11 o'clock.
LVO.
These are headlines
Cut.
this morning. 4 children
OS6
are
next.
killed
With
after a
your
house fire
move.
breaks out in the middle of the night.
On your
Starting
shot.
in Stafford.
OS6.
OS6 Q.
2 adults and another child are being treated in hospital. We are
Stand by,
live at
Downing
the scene.
Street.
OS5 next. White. Downing
On
Street
your
live
live
shot
shot,
Q.
Also today, Theresa May chairs Cabinet before heading to
Paris
Belfast,
next.
where she'll promise a Brexit deal that honours commitments
Clear of your
to
live
Belfast.
shot. Becky wants
And
to get
Mix
in.
and Q on. Paris.
10 people die and nearly
Clear of
30
your live
injured.
Neeson next.
Howard
LVO and a
Rock
shot.
plays in Paris.
And Mix Q. Neeson.
The Hollywood star Liam Neeson.
Grab next.
Full
Shot here.
after admitting this to an interview.
And shot. Strap out. 10 seconds here.
Yes.
Live wipe to Raw next in about 10 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2. Mike's in. Wipe. Colin Q. Last one.
Celebrate our 30th birthday today.
Camera
Sky
8
News
next.
is
Logo wipe
NBC
here.
Behind the scenes, live and raw.
Start your move. Wipe. Go 8. 3, 2, 1. Q.
Very
Envision.
strange. Good morning. 4 children died after a fire broke out overnight in a house in Stafford. Police and emergency
Stand by,
services
Matt.
responded to the
On the
house
sot.
Sycamore Lane in the southwest of the town.
Graphic
at
coming.
around 20 to 3 this morning. The cause
Boxes
is
next.
not yet known. Our correspondent
Becky Johnson.
is
Wipe.
at the scene for us now. Becky, a very good morning to you. What can you tell us?
OS6.
Well,
Cut.
desperately
Mike's
sad
out.
news
Becky's got a
and,
graphic.
I'm
Yeah,
sure
right
you
then.
can see if I just
Can you
step
also-
out of the shot here, you can see behind me there is an investigation now underway at this house where this.
No grab
fire
yet.
took place
Play
in
out.
the
Can you keep an
early
eye
hours
out for this
this
fire
morning. You
grab,
can see
please?
that really
It's just
quite
been fed.
considerable damage to the house. A blue tarpaulin
Didn't get the
now
map
covering the top windows. Before that went up, we could see that the window frames had been knocked out. And from speaking to people who saw
I've
that
crashed.
fire in the early hours of the morning. They say that was because the emergency services pushed the window frames out, trying to get in and trying desperately.
I'm just going to have to log us off because my Open Media has crashed as it always does.
A statement from West Midlands
Here's a
Ambulance
graphic.
Service. They said
Animate.
that 3 patients.
Tash, can you code that? It's gone in, I
adults
think.
And a child.
Guys, I won't see when that grab goes in for the time being.
They say all 3 patients were assessed and treated on scene
Clip's
by
not
ambulance
found
staff
yet.
with
Is it?
non-life-threatening injuries
six,
before being taken to hospital for further care. Tragically, 4 children from the property were confirmed dead on scene. Now, this is a very quiet residential area of Stafford.
Thank you.
It's not ready to go.
Play
out.
Shout when it is,
Story
Tash.
27. Can you get us a grab in Foxtrot, please? Foxtrot, please. 27.
No, give her another one if you can, because we're waiting for a grab from the neighbours, which just needs coding.
Well, no, there's no duration in it. Adds.
One woman whose
Hello,
granddaughter
Nocturnal.
goes to the same school. It was actually her husband was one of the people who dialed 999 because they say they could
Thank
see
you.
the
7,
flames
John
from their
Barnes,
back
ready to go?
windows shooting
Hi, is Lewis there, guys?
Guys, there's no media duration. I don't
Lewis,
think
you
that
can come
clip
in now,
works.
thanks. Unless you want to stay out of
The
vision.
ages of the children were around 8, 6,
You're
4,
next, mate.
3 and 2, so young primary school-aged children.
The house fire grab that's just gone in.
Good afternoon, Mr.
We haven't got it yet, Adam.
Yeah.
You're speaking in the gallery. Can you hear me?
I'm just going to have to take us off air and back on air.
The 2 adults.
Yeah, I've got the grab.
We think one was the child's mother.
No, it's not ready.
No, it's not. It says
Very,
warning.
very sad.
It's
I'm
not
sure,
valid.
You know, you can understand people very upset.
So I got it now, mate.
Got it? Okay, let's tell her.
Yeah.
Those children were, you know, all the children
Grab, good to go.
Grab's there.
Warning's gone now, Adam.
Yeah, we got it, Top.
I think we can now hear from
Here we are,
Wendy
grab
Pickering,
next.
that's the
Wendy.
neighbour I said, whose granddaughter attends
It might be
the
both
same
of them.
school as 4 of the victims.
She
of
just
this
said from
horrendous
Wendy,
fire.
so let's see. On the grab. Well done, Becky.
Well done. You're going to pick up and wrap
20
quickly off the back of this.
He
Nicely done.
Colin wants to pick up.
Oh. Colin's going to pick up with another question.
The first house,
15 seconds. Colin will pick up. Box is next. 10 seconds on this. Colin will pick up with a question.
Outwards. 7, 6.
5 seconds. 4, 3, 2. Colin's mic in. 1. Cut boxes. In vision.
Becky, some understandable shock there. There's
There was 6
big
next.
fire brigade, fire service presence still. At what point, if at all, today do you expect
We're watching
to hear officially
the
from
11 o'clock hour
emergency
presented by
services about
Colin
what's
Brazier. You can see he's chatting to our correspondent Becky Johnson up in the right-hand corner there. Now, if you've been watching for a couple of hours this morning, you'll already notice there's a different type of energy in the gallery here compared to the All Out Politics programme, where it's largely interview-based and largely scheduled interviews. Adam, very calming presence in the studio as well. The gallery, the action in the gallery was perhaps not quite as frantic and frenetic as you've seen here. Already in, 5 minutes, not even 5 minutes, we've already seen the correspondent being told about an extra bit of vision and audio that she can throw to. You're having direction being put into the presenter's ear, into the reporter's ear, and of course all the cameras that are out and about and around as we're trying to cover this, what is essentially, as you can see, literally a story that is continuing to develop as we watch it.
Do we have comms with Hull? Sally Lockwood, OS1?
Becky, for now, thanks very much. The Prime Minister takes her Brexit battle to Northern Ireland today, where she'll tell business leaders and politicians.
Thank you.
Becky, Adam, very nice. Thanks very much.
The Irish border open. This morning, Theresa May has been chairing the weekly cabinet meeting in Downing Street as the search continues for an alternative to the controversial Irish backstop. Well, after cabinet, the Prime Minister will then head to Northern Ireland, where she will say with her speech that there is a solution which can command support there and in Westminster.
Perfect, thank you.
Meanwhile, speaking in Japan,
John, it's Adam, the producer in the Sky News Gallery. Can you hear me all right? Stand by. Thank you very much for joining us. We're probably still about 4 or 5 minutes away from coming to you. Is that all right?
Across the Brexit divide, a meeting for a
Lovely.
You're just hearing the producer there, the gallery producer, just queuing up, making sure that the next guest, the outside source, is ready to go, standing by.
But
sometimes things drop away and you need to get them on telly as soon as possible. That's the job, largely of the director, but of course also the producer for teeing up in time.
Sorry, Luce, go ahead.
5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1.
Beautiful, thank you.
Wipe. Oh, it's 5. No, it's 5 next.
You noticed again there are a lot of communication, not just amongst the staff in the gallery. The producer and the director tend to talk to each other all the way through the programme. When they don't talk to each other, that's when programmes can go wrong. But it's also speaking to the staff outside as well, making sure that as things are being updated, that as stories are moving, the scripts are changing practically in real time, as new bits of vision and audio get either secured by our camera crews or reporters or fed to us by agencies, getting those onto the programme as soon as possible as well.
As closer political and particularly economic alignment with the European Union as possible. And they came up with this idea, which would essentially say that the government would have, as the European Union, for extra time during the transition period to work on a deal. But if we get to the end of that transition and no agreement has been reached, then effectively they would use that time to go for a hard Brexit, a no-deal Brexit, a WTO Brexit, whatever moniker you want to use. And they are currently working. They worked yesterday. They met yesterday. They're feverishly working away.
Sal Hare's Adam in the gallery, you all right?
At the same time, the Prime Minister is going to Northern Ireland to talk to the DUP.
Sally, Adam, you hearing me?
On Wednesday, the other Northern Ireland parties to meet business groups and leaders to try and
Hello, we are off the back of Lewis. We're going to play out a minute 45 package on the Paris fire, and then we will come to you.
No, it's 5 next.
Of Europe, and that is rather unusual.
It's pretty much, it's a straight live, isn't it? You haven't got anything to throw to.
Any more here, Ed?
No.
No, Colin, just straight. Paris next.
On her side of the party to go to Brussels.
Never
Paris next, then Libby Squire with Sally Lockwood. And then we'll have John Barnes.
I suspect because she doesn't want to go to the EU, to come away empty-handed, to be told by the presidents of Europe.
I've moved John Barnes up a little bit above Crawford's piece because he's there waiting, but he's happy to wait.
Let's take you away from Gallery 21 and back to Millbank, as it's commonly known, but essentially it's our studios in the heart of Westminster. This is the newsroom. The desk on the long desk on the right-hand side is essentially, well, was where you see the kind of the political editor, the head of political news. This is a shot from the end of the newsroom. Adam Bolton, despite the fact he came off air 10 minutes ago, still waiting there. We'll be speaking to him in a minute or two's time. But it's difficult to exaggerate just how much of an exciting place it can be, Westminster. Now, in politics, many people say it's quite a dry subject. Of late, surely that isn't the case. It's the place to be where the stories are moving on and developing. So let's turn our attention once again to Enda Brady, who will be joining us to take us through, well, give us a little bit of a tour of Westminster, let us know a little bit more about what's going on there. And look, another gallery. There's Enda.
Hi Neil, yeah, we're inside the gallery here. This is where all the technical stuff happens behind the scenes, which makes all our presenters and correspondents look good. I'm not going to touch any of these buttons because genuinely I haven't got a clue what they do. Gareth, our technical supervisor here, tells me that these control the camera shutters, so I'm going to leave them well alone, and we're going to go for a little walk now. So we are in Millbank. This is the building in Westminster where all of the political correspondents and news channels are based, and where the politicians come and they do their interviews, and they will go from Sky News, they will do an interview here, they will go elsewhere, they will go on all the news channels, and then they will zip back across the road to Parliament, to whatever parliamentary business they are doing. And I have here, he has finished all out politics. We're going to turn the tables on him. Mr. Adam Bolton, great to see you on Sky News Raw. Adam, talk me through your typical day.
I think the whole point is there isn't a typical day. I mean, when we started 30 years ago, for example, and Jonathan Scarrett behind the camera was there, we didn't even have a camera crew assigned regularly to Westminster. We had an office. We were actually the first people to have an office, but we had me and 2 correspondents, 1 producer, and a freelance crew, which we hired in as needed. What we could do, and we were the first people to do that, was broadcast live at any time. And we had correspondents based here, like in a foreign bureau, who never had to go back to the headquarters. So in that sense, we really changed the way political broadcasting was done in that country, in this country, and we've moved on in that way. So, you know, there isn't a typical day because you don't know what's going to be happening in politics. Certainly, as an interviewer and a presenter, what you want is the unexpected. I mean, I feel very unhappy if I do a programme and I think I haven't learned anything over those 2 hours or 3 hours, because then that means the public haven't happened. So what you want is news. That's why it's called news. You want to hear something new.
So this business has changed so much year on year. You were here on day one. Our cameraman, Jonathan Scarrett, he was here on day one. People like me have just parachuted in halfway through. But, you know, the change of pace must be extraordinary.
Yeah, I mean, it really really has changed because, I mean, back when we started, it was actually my second startup. I'd done a startup at a company called TVAM, so I knew you had to get everything in your contract, not just, you know, for yourself, but the fact that you would have a guaranteed number of phone lines, that you'd have a fax machine, remember them. Of course, the internet didn't exist. So for many years, we were actually doing breaking news, first with the news all the time, and then as mobile phones have come online, as the internet happened, most people probably get their first glimmer of a news story if they're following it on the internet. So we have to make sure that we can be first and accurate and comprehensive in what we do. But I mean, again, the difference of Sky News, 24-hour news, is, as you know, Enda, we often report stories when we don't have the full picture. What we have to do is to gather the information and to tell our audience what we know and what we don't know and gradually build it up on air as we broadcast, which, of course, is different from doing a news bulletin.
How has social media changed what you do?
It's changed a lot. I mean, I've just been looking at my sort of daily greetings, and, you know, they're rude. Another joke guest on Sky News comes on about how democracy becomes a dictatorship, a delusional, arrogant know-it-all. That's a